It is so wonderful to walk into a singing shield. It feels awesome, right? That's why I decided to go back off the stage, because I didn't want it to distract from the energy that was building, and that was excellent. So thank you very much. Okay, well, welcome to Phoenix, Slide 1 class. I don't know if everybody's seen the workshop description that we put out like right before. That's when I found out exactly what it was about. So, we're not doing too bad so far. I do have the program. I know what the program is. I see the 25 graphs that go with it, and I'm working on those graphs. But, so that's why we're setting, I don't know if these weren't handed out yet, were they? They're on their way? Okay. You're getting just a basic time itinerary for the workshop. We did set it for later hours, but at least we'll stick to those hours. That gives me the daytimes to get the progressions in, because I'm still getting them. But at least I have the program now. And the stuff that this has got to be amazing. What I spent most of yesterday and today doing, they showed me how to use all those little bits of the Allurian atomic chart, how to actually downstep that. You have to downstep it from, if you want to know what hydrolase is here, you have to be able to downstep it from down through D3 to D2, so you can understand what atoms they are here and those kind of things. So they're just starting to show us how to translate those charts into atomic structure here, and so we can begin the process of reactivating the solar symbiosis ability of the body. And it's a very complex process, but I will try to step it down as easy as I can through the program. So we're going to be dealing with that on both days as far as understanding. All right, let's look at slide again. Now we know slide is another word for a certain type of ascension. All right, slide is where you transfigure part of the cellular structure before you can full span, which is full ascension, where you can transmigrate and leave here and go to other places of the eternal. You do have to be able to transfigure the entire structure of the cellular body as well. We're going to find out more about that whole process during this Slide 1 workshop, and we're going to find out why the mind or the mental body is so key to getting the body to be able to slide, because there are certain structures within the mind that are the mind format of the mental body that are called Tiwa fields. That was a new word for me this week. I didn't know, I never heard of them before. They never talked about them before. These have to do with the hydroacoustic bodies. So we're going to learn a lot of information about these things this time that will answer a whole bunch of questions, such as where does thought come from? What is it in the first place? Where does it go once it leaves your attention? What happens when, you think a thought and you let it go? Say if you have a desire and you're using an affirmation, I want to make this happen, right? And then you let it go. Where does it go? And why so often doesn't it do what you wanted it to do? If we had the ability of direct manifestation, we would know how to simply feel a thing, think it, learn encryption, which means learn how to put an encryption to it, a creation pattern, a template, and then send it someplace so it would come back and step down into atomic structure. We're going to learn what that structure is about, what has been blocking it, and what the first steps we have to do to unblock that process. Because it is the same process that blocks thought manifestation that is responsible for the physical body dying and that blocks ascension. So we're going to find out some fascinating material. I'm looking at the graphs and things that are coming through. I'll get a few key ones done. I won't get 25 done in 3 days. No way, because if anybody's been here before, you've seen how detailed the graphs can be. But it will show us certain structures of the mental body and how all of the bodies, we've learned about the spirit body, we've learned about the light body, we've learned about the hydroacoustic body, we know we have a physical body. Now we're going to learn how they all fit together and where the mind actually is, what levels of mind. There are certain, they call them regions. There are 6 different regions to what is considered the mental body. And right now we're in a condition on this planet because the environment, the planet has a mental body too, that structure of the light body, and it has been harnessed. And because of that, ours are harnessed too. We'll start to understand how the nets have been working, what they do to thought, and not only thought, what they do to our bodies. And we're going to be, by the end of this, we're going to be shown some tools that will help us to make what is called a window, a mental window that will become the sliding door, right, where the body can actually go through. And it has to start with that window. So there are some technologies that are coming through. They're hydroacoustic technologies. That word will make more sense by the end of this workshop as far as what exactly is the hydroacoustic body. We'll learn some things about how to set what are called morphogenetic fields, where you'll be taught how to you could call them thought seeds, but it's much more than that. It's actually how to create a pattern of something that you would like to create. And you can start simple at first, or, like something that doesn't have a lot of emotional negative charge to it. Oh, I'll never get that. Never. When you do that, you actually help create that when you put all that emotional charge. So we're going to learn some things about how to create morphogenetic fields, what they are called. They're called TIWA plates. And we're going to learn how to create TIWA plates and where to send them and how to breathe in order to use them. But before they'll work well, we have to undo some of the mess that actually runs through the physical atomic structure due to the mutations of what are called calorine fields that are literally in the Earth's atmosphere as atomic layers that completely block the natural functions of solar symbiosis. Solar symbiosis is the process by which we breathe through our skin. It is the process by which organic breatharians live, and where they don't have to eat because it's just a natural inflow and outflow of energy with the planet they're on and with the universe that they're in. We're going to see some amazing new information that is all about that. And one of the most interesting things, and they just started this with me like yesterday, is called, they said we're going to have, oh, by the way, we didn't give you this for the workshop description, but we're going to, what the workshop is going to culminate into is what is called resanctification of the pentagonal code. And think about pentagrams, and it's all sorts of weird stuff attached to pentagrams, and we've always taught never use them without a circle around them, right, for starters. We're going to find out that they're actually, the shape of a pentagram here is not a natural pentagram. We're going to find out what a pentagram is about, what it has to do with the manufacturing of atomic structure from light body into atoms. And we're going to see where it fits in to the literal structure of the hydroacoustic body and the mental body and emotional body and physical body. And it is that particular code, the pentagonal code, that is holding this planet in gridlock. And we may not be able to take it to heal the entire planet, but we will be able to heal ourselves and also parts of the planet. Once we have this problem of they call it the pentagonal perversion in the bodies, once that is cleared. And you need to get to the point of using hydroacoustic technologies like the Aquatone system that we are just introducing and developing to be able to take that problem out, because it's a problem that was set deeply into the morphogenetic field, the form-holding blueprint of literally the planetary and solar and galactic bodies. So it is a very strong mutation that it's been ages and ages since anyone's been able to clear that from their bodies on this planet. It's been, I don't think, since early seeding 1, where there wasn't some tint of that. We're going to begin that process of clearing the pentagonal mutation. And when we do that, that is when the window in the mental body structure opens. And it is through that window that we can restore the core flows that have to do with the hydroacoustic body, the flows of spirit and prana. We're also going to learn a little bit about these words that we use, prana, mana, things to describe the natural life force currents. It's like, okay, they're out there somewhere, but they're here too, with the step-down charts, the atomic conversion charts that they just had me working on. There's like 6 different steps you have to do to find out what element is what on which dimension, to find out what it is here. But we'll find out what mana is, what carries it here. It's not even what carries it, but what is mana on D2, because there are atoms and structures, such as oxygen. That's not mana, but that is something else as you go up the step-up sequence up to D3 and then up into the hydroacoustic body of density 1. So we're going to learn some more about these things. It really brings it a bit home more, and we're going to learn technologies that will help us to get to the next stage where we can start working directly with the body fields. Because it's not, first we have to clear the mutation from the mental body structure, because that is a physical structure in atomic form as well as our physicality as we know it here. And only then will we be able to fix the problems in the telluric body fully at the core level that will enable slide. I had an interesting experience the way all of this started. Before they hadn't talked to me about much of anything about what slide 1 about. A few weeks back, they gave the entire, because I was saying, if you don't tell me what I'm going to teach, I'm going to quit, because I can't stand going into workshops like this not knowing, right? Because the last one was like the workshop that almost wasn't, kind of like the Christmas that almost wasn't. It took so long. But I just said, please help. And within a week, I got this download of the schedule from now until 2012. I was like, oh, okay. Thank you. Right. But then it was like, okay, slide 1's coming up. Okay, we know I have a sentence about this. What exactly is slide 1 about, right? We'll tell you. Please, not the night before. Well, it wasn't that bad. It started like the week before. So at least I could get the program. That's why it didn't come out. The workshop description, I didn't have it until what, Wednesday, I think. Yeah. Right. But hey, that's not bad, at least not the day after the workshop, like often happens. But before that, I had this shift. I've been feeling really, really ill physically. Just like I could feel stuff, my body trying to transmute whatever was running in the grids, and it was getting stronger. Whatever was running in the grids was getting stronger, and I felt like my body was losing the battle. And I was just like, it's just like I can't breathe. Everything hurts. I'm waking up in the middle of the night with heats, colds, and pain in all my joints and all of that kind of thing, and also with the heart palpitations. And like, are you getting that too? Yeah, and that was getting scary because I'm thinking, okay, well, I would first blame that on me. I've been smoking for many years. A female smoker over age 40 smokes 2 packs a day. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I wonder why my heart's doing palpitations. But my body's kind of used to that stuff that I do to it anyway, and I'm going to clear that eventually. But eventually. But I was just getting really, really depressed about it. There was so much work to do, and it was getting to where every time I'd go on and start getting a heavy line, and the lines keep getting heavier as far as saturation of data and technicals and that kind of stuff. The heat wave would come in, I'd feel the heats, and then it would make my stomach turn, and I would get stabbing pain in my back and things where it was just too high of a line. So they did something for me, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew they helped. And the first thing I noticed was it started when I was on my way waking back up in the morning after I went to sleep at night. I found myself in this interesting space. I was like, I know this space. It was this, it's like looking down on your life. It's the place you go for review. And I'm thinking, did I die? Right? Did I die and don't know it yet? Right? Was my first question. Because I had been there before. I remember coming through those fields to do the walk-in, but also in Katie's body, the part of me that had walked out, she had that particular experience, and they are the places, the particular planes that she had to go through to get out. And that's when she had a near-death experience, and the body still has a cellular memory imprint of that very visually, like what it looked like, what it felt like. That was a place that after you go through the weird little tunnel effect, that it goes, and it's light, but not all like bright light blinding you, but you feel like, oh, that was all just a horrible nightmare down there. And it feels really good. And she didn't want to come back when she had the near-death experience. We had to convince her to come back and just to wait to grow the body enough where we could finish the walk-in, walk-out thing. But it was that place. So I really I remember finding myself, 3 mornings in a row, I found myself on the way back here, but to wakefulness, but very awake there. And I just felt this most wonderful peace about the whole thing. And I could see stuff really, really clearly as far as what the work was about and what needed to be done and all of those kind of things. And it was like, oh, good, I want to stay here. Can I not go back to you? I was like, no. So the 3rd morning that happened, that one, I woke up and I felt a shift in my body, like the wave of peace from there came into my body. And kind of interesting. And I found myself the whole day walking around in that state of consciousness while being fully aware here too. That was really neat. Yeah. Yeah, and that was right around when I found my father too. My father died in 97, and I've not been able to find him anywhere out there, because I can usually track people and find out where they are and see if they need help or anything, or at least say goodbye. And I couldn't find Dad, and they just told me, don't worry, he's in process right now. He'll be all right. It's like, great, where is he in process? Can't even say hi. It's like, no, it would not be good for him right now. Before I had those openings, it felt like the opening came up here. Like it was a very distinct feeling right up above the head. And right before that, I had this really strange dream experience first, where I found him, and he thought he didn't realize he had died. And there's a lot of people that get in this position, and they go into what are called review planes, and they don't realize their physical body had died. And it's like the matter state, because depending on where your consciousness is stationed, depends on what levels you feel or see as physical outside of yourself. And I guess it had been so traumatic for him. He had died of cancer, and quite quickly. And he had transitioned quickly and got into the review space. He remembered that he was in the hospital because he had a really bad car accident because he drank too much, and made him stop drinking because he was in the hospital a long time, but he got better. And then his employer liked him enough to not fire him. So he stayed working at IBM because he used to work at IBM when he was alive. And he just carried on. But he wasn't alone. He was in this place with a whole bunch of other people who are doing the same thing, which is really interesting, right? Right. And it was like a place different than that place. It was a place that still had all this tension, and he was still worried about not having enough money. He thought his daughter was off in Arizona going to art college. That's how he remembered me. Okay, right? And the way I had found him is the Beloveds had taken me into this situation with the Katie part of myself. She's been trained as a way shower on the other places, so now we kind of get together and we, it makes it so we can do multiple planes simultaneously, or we can help on multiple levels. And they merged, she and I, so we could go into his hologram. And he was so glad to see that we'd come back to visit from art school. And we were trying to help him get out of here because he was still trying to figure out, he was afraid he was going to lose his house because he wasn't making enough money because the medical bills were too high, and it was still all very real for him physically. So they were starting to train me in how to intervene on that level. And there are sets of ideas, right, sets of beliefs that a person, if they transition over to the other planes, if they hold those beliefs, they will still materialize. And there are certain snares that make that happen in ways it shouldn't, that have to do with the net fields here. But there are interventions that are being done. And they had me do an intervention with him. And you have to do them carefully. You have to work within the paradigm of belief that the people have. If they're Christian, you have to use that symbology. If they're Jewish, you have to use that symbology. If they're Muslim, you have to use that symbology. Whatever. But whatever, they would understand the intent that you're trying to do. You actually have to. I remember we played angel once, like just choir angel in our early training. Just go back there and sing with the angels with the wings, right? It was in a Christian rescue drama. My dad was Christian. He was Catholic, but he was not. He didn't go to church or anything. And so we had to intervene, in a pair of jeans. And, hi, Dad, just came in to visit you from Arizona. How's art school? Pretty good. Oh, yeah. So, by the way, we're going to retire, my husband and I. You got married? Why didn't you invite me? I was like, and it's like, help! What do you say to that one? Oh, memory glitch here. There's going to be a problem because you don't want to terrorize them. You can't go and say, hi, you're dead. Would you like to go? It'll scare people, right? And they'll freak out, and it'll get even worse for them, right? So it's like, I didn't know where you had moved to, which was the truth, right? You have to tell them the truth. You can't lie in those interventions, right? And I didn't know where he had moved to for 3 years. Or no, it was almost 11 years now, actually. And he said, oh, it must have been when I was in the hospital. And his mind, his memory was a bit fuzzy about that because he felt that he'd just been in the hospital for 3 years or something long, and he was lucky to have lived because of the car accident he had. And that's not how he died. He didn't die in a car accident, bless him. But so we had to work with him with this, and he said, well, why don't you retire with us? We're going to go someplace really nice, and you could come and live with us, and you don't have to worry about it. I can't afford it. I can't afford to go. So, well, that's all right. My husband and I, we have a secret. We have a little business, and it supports us, so we can take care of you. You don't have to do that. And he's like, well, all right, but I'm going to wait. I have 2 years left to retire, and when I retire. Okay, all right. And after that I'm getting from the Beloveds, by the way, yes, he does have 2 years, because in 2 years he's going to retire because he's birthing back into a body, right? It's so we have to get him ready for that transition because he doesn't believe in reincarnation. He doesn't believe in any of that stuff, but he managed to get through conscious, but still running a hologram. Not everybody gets through where they're conscious right away. They're kind of asleep for a long time and, that kind of thing. But he did get through conscious. And after that experience, and that was before I had the opening experience, of my own personal one, it started to dawn on me, wow, this is really interesting because those planes are just as physical, right? And you just don't go up to tell you. And what if you just went up and said, well, look, you don't have to be afraid of money anymore because it's not real here, right? That actually would be true. But that's the same here. They work the same. It's the thought projection, and it's done on a mass level. There are mass thought bands. And it started on me. Then I wondered. I said, okay, is there any possibility, remembering we had a boating accident in Paxos, right, As and I did, and that was very, very close, and I know I was very, very sick for about 3 to 6 months after that. And I gave workshops, and one of them I think was I had the wrap on because I had been coughing so hard because there just something affected my lungs really bad that I actually tore a muscle from the coughing right before a workshop, and I still had to go in and do the workshop. But I thought we died for a while there. I was like, you know what? Oh my God! Because they're talking about mass review planes, where when a whole group of people goes together, they just transfer their hologram. And they might remember a common, like, little, oh, that was a big flood. But wow, we survived, even though their bodies didn't, right? Then the beloveds got into more interesting things about such mass review bands and about the Amenti Rescue Mission and what had happened about the lost souls of Terra, which started the reason why they started the Earth host down here as far as the Terran fields went. That there were a bunch of those review bands here that had to do with the people from Terra who didn't realize they lost their bodies, and they're still carrying on. And that has something to do with the heavy dramas that are getting beamed down here in the nets, and we're just living it out again. We're living out the Atlantean dramas and the whole bit. So there's a much thinner veil between life and death than it seems like down here. And we're going to be looking into some of that and what that means in relation to these Tiwa structures, what the structures are supposed to be like. We're going to look at the planes of the mental body, which have to do with the planes of the earth body as well. We've talked about planes before in relation to the earth with the vertical maps and those kind of things, where we showed where Aurora platforms were and where the Akusha platforms were, literally in relation to like where the Van Allen belts are in the atmosphere, direct access to certain planes going all the way to Eartha and the Adashi temples. Well, there's other planes within these structures too that part of them are natural and part of them aren't. And what we're going to be doing is poking a window, a large window, a personal one, but also one for the planet that will clear through what are called the Cal fields. And they're made by the Caduceus mass that we've talked about before. But they create an unnatural light structure called a calorine. Calorines are like a perversion of joules, like that they measure, joules, calories, that they measure heat with, right? The heat stored in a body, that's how they figure out how many calories are in food and that kind of stuff here. So there are certain calorine fields that don't belong there, that are because of the net. And they control our bodies as well as our minds. And to be able to biologically slide or even mentally get to the point where, like what's on the other end of slide, the first stop is called median Earth. That is the closest to ascension Earth. That's the part of Earth that didn't get pulled into the nets, that is still left. The third quantum of Earth's fields that did not get pulled in to the net mess and the phantom mess and all of that. So in order for us to get there, even in projection, it's difficult. I've had some of the most difficult projections that I've had. Like I could get to Adashi real easy when that's supposed to be all the way over in M31, in the M31 galaxy, the Adashi temples, where we project through the platforms and we just go right over, and it's easy. When we try to do the median Earth ones, which are the local ones to get to where median Earth is, it's a physically manifest place too. It's been one of the hardest ones, just like you're moving through fog and you're trying to get there, and it's hard to hold the focus when you're there. This is because these planes that are not supposed to be there, the calorine planes, are embedded in between the structures that would normally allow for open flow between those portions of this part of Earth's body and that part of Earth's body. What we're going to be doing, and I still want to know if we're dead, all of us down here, right? I'm serious. I mean, the whole planet could be in a reviewscape. That is what freaked me out slightly. Oh my God, we lost our bodies and we just carried on. How many times can you do that? You know what I mean? I died in my reviewscape, and then I went into a reviewscape, and then I died in my reviewscape. How long can you do this? I still don't know the answer to those questions, but I do believe we're considered the living dead. Then there's the dead, which are different reviewscape worlds. This is one that is straddling both for the moment. And part is going to go into the other, the ones where, yes, dead, meaning you're cut off from the natural flows and you will not be able to get the ascension potential back. But you still keep going on, even if you don't lose your body immediately. But then it comes down to, if there's such a fine veil, what is this body anyway? Right? If you have one of these in your reviewscape after this one died, it's very strange. There's quality of matter that is there and here, where that actually feels more alive than this. Even the one my dad's stuck in It feels like a bit of a happier place, not terrific. But we're going to learn some of the answers to some of these questions through the structures they're going to show us about these planes. And we're going to open a window to the place that we're aiming for, which is the next stop. If you want to ascend off Earth, you got to get to median Earth, which is still a part of Earth. And it's much nicer there and a much higher frequency. And that's the place that is hosting. First you have Earth here, net Earth, and then going up you have the part that is median Earth, that was the original Amenti Earth, before it got twisted into net Earth and phantom Earth. And then you have Ashale, then you have Shala, then you have Eartha, right? That's the local ascension stack as far as the gates and how you get out. So they're going to start beginning to acclimate us first with the mental body healings that will control the epigenetic overlay, basically, which controls the DNA on the D2 level. So this is why we need to work with the mental body structures, because it directly, the structures that don't belong in the mental body not only mess us up and make us feel like we're running around in circles down here and can't remember anything as far as how to ascend and all that, and giving us an artificial, it's like a review scape that's being generated through us that is not true, because it has there's certain elemental mutations that cause these. The calorines actually cause these distortions of consciousness. Totally messes up the body flows. That's why we don't have physical control over the body in relation to even healing it, and why it dies. But we're going to open this window, and when we open that window, we are going to be clearing. Literally, if you think of the DNA and you pull it out and make it pull the chain out so you can see it like it's a double helices, there's a coating on that called the epigenetic sheath. It's a chemical coating that actually signals different things to the DNA. Science is just finding out about this and starting to realize it's important because it seems to control the operation of certain genes. So it's not just the genes alone that are creating whatever in the body. It's how they're being, it's almost like if the genes were a piano, the epigenetic overlay is like the fingers, right? And where you put them will depend on what they play. And the cal fields in the net are controlling the epigenetic overlay. And it's giving us false mind issues as well, as far as things that aren't really, that are not natural, and all sorts of addictions and things. All of the addictions, be it food, sex, drugs, alcohol, any of that. And I mean food like the need to eat, right? That would be considered an addiction caused by the mutation. People don't go around eating things or each other in the ascended worlds. They're breatharians. They have their systems turned on. They don't need to. So the word addiction is broad spectrum in that regard. But there are certain things that addictions themselves are specifically and directly caused by these specific net fields that are blocking the natural, what are called Tiwa planes. And we're going to be working with the Tiwa planes to begin the process. Imagine if you had a natural crystal structure in your body, which you do all over the place, all sorts of levels. But let's say on the D3 level, you had your mental body. And just imagine you're in a big crystal bubble. It's a beautiful, like not just solid crystal, but like all little crystal points, like being inside of a geode. And then imagine there's this dirty slime of nasty crystals, like coal crystals, covering the beautiful clear crystals where the light can come in. And those things, they are literally structures that are hanging in our fields in atomic form that we need to clear. And what we're doing is poking a hole literally through that, wiping off some of the slime, and then cracking a hole up through to the natural part so we can bring the natural light in. That will trigger certain things in the epigenetic overlay. And that will begin to allow those frequencies, the natural frequencies from our hydroacoustic body, to start entering the body again through the DNA. And it will open the DNA, and that's what we work on when we start working with the body in the slide workshops. They all go in a set. We have first the mind one, then the body one, then integrating the spirit. Then there's another level of that in how they schedule the programs from now until 2012. But this is the first one that opens that window, and it's a window that will be in the epigenetic overlay that will allow for the body to be reached. And what the body needs to do is to be able to restart the process of hydrolase conversion. And we're going to find out more about that. First of all, what is that down here? What is hydrolase? I've gotten a bunch of the atomic translations as far as what they are, atom-wise down here. And that's exciting to begin with. Somewhere, I think, but before the workshops are over, I will have been given enough information to figure out what it is we're supposed to be breathing, inhaling, and exhaling, literally in the air. And what we're actually doing that is actually not healthy. Because we're going to be prepared if we want to slide. So you want to learn to slide? Well, it means we have to learn to breathe Christic air again. The air on this planet is not the right atmospheric balances. That's why the beloveds very rarely do visits, because they would become ill here, and it would, it would start messing up with their flows. They can come in certain ways, and they call them sliding cities. And they're going to, one of the things we're going to cover in this workshop is that they're going to tell us a little bit about the sliding cities of the past that were used here in the early Amenti Rescue Mission period. And they're going to let us know that they are reopening them. And that means if we can get to a certain level of hydrolase conversion, pre-hydrolase conversion ability in the body, we will be able to enter these fields. And it's literally like these would be cities that almost work like spaceships, where they can shift into, not like sort of come down, but it's more like shift into the angular rotation of particle spin, where they actually just manifest. They won't do that in the middle of other cities because that would break buildings and things. They would be more in places where there aren't other structures. They can also do this in small scale. So they're opening the slide cities, so they will be able to begin to interact with them more directly. And part of what we need to learn is to, first of all, get those mind filters off so we can start getting the epigenetic overlay to start signaling the chemicals it needs to in the DNA, so we have the biological ability to enter one of those sliding cities. And after that, we will work on full transfiguration, but this is the first step. And there's going to be things that will change. If we do slide and say, yay, we made it out in ascension, and we made it to median Earth, the first thing, if you take this body this way, you're going to go, you're going to not be able to breathe, right? It's a different kind of air. It's actually a much lighter air. And it's, I don't know if they consider it lighter or heavier here, but we will look at some of the components of that air. Water there is hydrolase, for example. Here, water is considered dead water. And when you translate it to like the D3 planes, you find out what it is in D3, which is where they would use the word hydrolase, and they just call what we call H2O. When you translate that up, they call that dead up there where they're coming, right? And they don't have that kind of water because it's missing certain qualities. But these are qualities you can't get by forcing things together down here. They have to materialize down. Within this too, we're going to learn some fascinating things. In the translation things, there's a lot of process involved with doing the atomic translations of, okay, on D3 it's this, on D2 it's this, right? On D1 it's this. So you know the etheric and the telluric and the atomic levels of what that particular substance is. But first they did the water bit, like showed me how to do that with water. Then they did gold. You know the old alchemist stuff about trying to turn lead into gold? Well, there's a reason for that. They still had little pieces of the stuff from the Atlantean days where the memory was still there about, yes, you could manifest gold, right? But by, you know, like doing stuff with lead and other things down here, you can't force it together, not natural gold. But there's a step-down formula that creates gold. The reason they told us that isn't so we can go, you know, go run out and make gold bars and manifest them directly. Not yet. No. You know, in fact, by the time we can do that, we won't want to be here anyway, and we wouldn't have to be, right? And you don't need to take money there because they don't use that form of control, right, over each other in their civilizations. But the reason they taught about the water, about the hydrolase and solar symbiosis process that takes place in the body, and about gold and silver and platinum, is because these things have to do with something that in the old Egyptian periods they called it white powder gold. And it had to do with Stargate passage. And it used to be a highly prized thing that sometimes the Leviathan races would kill the ones who could ascend because they knew they would ascend as soon as they killed them. And if they could capture this powder substance that would release onto the skin quick enough, they could then ingest it and trigger temporary gate passage in themselves. Well, white powder gold is something very specific. It is called celestolite. Celestolite, which is connected to the element we've talked about, we call it a transient element, celestaline, and the celestaline wave that moves through the body. What all of these together, this knowledge comes to, is basically how to turn the body back into a superconductor. And that is what is needed for Stargate passage. Turning it back into a superconductor is not going to happen by taking outside substances. It has to do with using the knowledge to open the natural what are called TIWA fields. They have to do with morphogenic fields in order to bring back the natural processes in your body so your body manufactures those substances themselves. So it's not about popping gold pills, you know what I mean, to make yourself do white powder gold. It doesn't work that way. But they've been trying since Atlantis to figure out how to make the formulas, you know, and if you could steal some of the real stuff from somebody that you killed that was in the process of leaving their bodies, right, because you killed them. They used to harvest. It was terrible what they did in the Atlantean days. But it's getting exciting because it's bringing all the information that we've learned for all of these years now. You know, it's been 10 years since we've been teaching various parts of all this, but bringing it together to where it becomes a very, very real physical thing that you can understand. We can understand where we're going. We can understand what's happened here on this planet. As far as, you know, it's not all hunky-dory. You know, no, this is not natural. Just because it appears in nature does not mean it's organic. We can learn all sorts of things. They're giving me little bits of things, too, on, like, one of the perverted laws of nature that happens here that isn't actually a law of nature. And let me see, how is it worded? It's one of the main ones they assume here. Oh, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That is not natural. That is not normal. Not unless you have a Biveka field, the two circles in the same spin. That's when it just keeps regurgitating, right? That means good is just as powerful as evil, and evil is just as powerful as good. It means everything's locked into a continual power struggle. It is more, how did they word it? They said every action in the crystals has a proportionally balanced reaction. Right, that's where you get 33 1/3 and 11 2/3. When you get like the masculine energies of the man A being or the man A, being 33 1/3, and the negative charge, what would be called female energies being the 11 2/3. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It means they're supposed to together create a power exchange that allows both systems to be to be perfectly balanced and be able to not perfectly balanced and static, but balance is like the tides in a perpetually moving universe. And it is through the perpetual movement that the spark phasing happens that allows the light body and the spirit body to work together to create perpetual, cellular regeneration and atoms that don't die. So this is what we're moving into now, and it's getting one step closer to the physical. And interestingly, that step closer is the mind. So it will be the mental body structures we're looking at, but we'll be looking at a whole lot more. We'll also be learning to free the pentagram into its natural form, because without that, you can't get control over the physical body. And this is why it has been such a symbol of occult stuff, because this has been known since the Atlantean periods. The shape of the pentagram, as it is used here, is not normal. Right now, that's why we put a circle around it. It is the way it is manifesting here. And what it does, we'll learn during the workshop, is directly connected to how light turns into atoms. It is distorted, and its angles are distorted. It creates distortions in matter that literally block us off from our own hydroacoustic bodies. So we're going to learn the actual shape of what a pentagram is supposed to look like. And we are going to bring that shape back here and back into our bodies to clear out the perverted pentagrams. Because right now there are two main pentagram structures that are running our divided mental and physical and etheric body fields. If you considered you have just like your radial body around you, like a circle sphere around you, that has been twisted where you have a Biveka instead, where it's cut half in the middle. Actually, in the bottom was put on reverse. That's why a lot of people, especially magnetic females, can tend to fill out in the hips when the reversal is picking up. It's like from here down. It's like, what? Right? I'm going through one of those at the moment. Because the Omega code is activating this stuff faster in the grids. They're starting to spin these pentagrams in the bodies in order to drag us fully into what would be the caduceus fields. Because right now we're in a blended earth. If we're one of the little balls on a Vesica Pisces, and this is net Earth, and then right on the other side, I can't do it with the microphone, right on the other side, you have the planes that are the caduceus Earth. And the caduceus Earth planes are falling into the phantom Earth planes. They're being dragged, forget it, they're being dragged in, and we need to separate a portion of net Earth's planes and bring them back into a natural alliance with the median Earth planes. And median Earth was the original Amente Earth, and it's here now. It's certain sets of planes that are accessible in our atmosphere. So we're going to be learning all of this stuff. There's a lot of information. But I have a feeling there's a couple of ahas that are going to be exciting, like even more than those things, that really show how this works. We're going to have a session tomorrow night that has to do with developing some basic sensitivities in the body, side development, psychic intuitive development, which is basically emotional body development, which is the physical body, the water body. So we're going to learn some things, like hands-on. We're going to break into groups and do some interesting things to learn to turn some things back on in the epigenetic overlay that haven't been on. There's certain frequencies we will use. There's a particular code that they're just giving us. I have a black and white drawn version, but this code, they call it the feel-good code because it can be used for all sorts of things, and it begins the process of turning back on the natural hydroacoustic flows, and they're the flows of prana into the body again, like fully bringing that on. So we're going to do a bit of psychic development in the evening session tomorrow, but we're going to go through a lot of technicals first, and then on Sunday we are going to have more technicals during the daytime, and then in the evening period, we will do the first Aquatone Systems healing thing. They're going to show us how to run an Aquatone session, and it's something that you, like, the Kathara healer people that are there, if you're doing client sessions, it's something you can bring to the, to a client session. We won't have books or anything on it yet where you can say, what was that list again? But we can teach you the basics of how to run it once we run it on ourselves. What this will do is, working with these hydroacoustic frequencies will literally clear out of the mental body structures and the epigenetic overlay this particular thing that blocks this pentagonal perversion, as they call it, that is blocking through the epigenetic overlay the body's ability to breathe and to do hydrolase conversion. And if we can't do that, we can never biologically slide. Most we can do is try to escape out the window, but at least we'll get the window open. It's also something in here that with these technologies and the knowledge we're going to learn here, once that window is open, we can, even if there are people that we know, or say if you live someplace and there's like a natural disaster and a lot of people die, you can actually know how to open the window for other people so they can get not stuck in what are called reviewscape loops. That's what my dad is in right now. He's in a reviewscape loop, and we're doing an intervention. Loops are not just bands or planes, but it's like that same, they still think they're alive, and it just keeps going, and they're still miserable, and they die in review, even though they're already biologically dead here. They have a biological level there, and that can go through misery. And they just continue doing that until they burn out the birth quantum. So we're going to be taught how, once we open the window within our own hydroacoustic body structure into the mental body, we will be able to transmit the frequencies to others that will just open that window to their own natural. It won't make them go any place. They can go where they want, but it will give them that option. And as far as where they can get out safely. When people do, where they go, I'm a ghost hunter, I'm going to go into a building, I sent you there, you died like 500 years ago. Mean well when they do this. I respect psychics who can see and hear and all that kind of stuff, but they have no idea how bad it was here. This is why we didn't start teaching that first. We would have had 1,000 people in every class if we were teaching the psychic stuff. That's the fun stuff. Everybody's going to go be a psychic, No, we had to teach the whole thing of what was really happening. So by the time we started teaching people how to be psychics, they would know where to go, how to handle themselves, and they would have the frequency in their bodies to be able to not get dragged in themselves into body possession, into all sorts of things that when you go blind trying to work into these, planes, because nobody remembers here what it's like. It's very scary to be a psychic unprotected. That's why some of them are very good. They can read the immediate field, but they can't tell what is happening around them. They won't know where they're going to go when they die. And if they die and they go to a place that seems like their heaven, they'll think that's it, right? There's all sorts of snares in these belief systems. It has to do with mass-programmed calorine fields that have these holographic false God concepts. So everybody on the planet is like, that's my God, or that's my God, and we'll fight about the God. No, it's right. These are literally mass belief screens that have been beamed in on purpose. They're part of them. They have part of the truth and then part of the twist. We're going to learn to get ourselves out that window, and that window has to do with that amazing feeling that I woke up with. I didn't know about the window first. First, I had the experience about having to help Dad get out of the review, whatever it was. He was in reviewscape loop, and I didn't know the word for that then. I knew it was a reviewscape. I've seen those before, and I've intervened on those before, but I didn't understand the mass concept of them, where it's like, wait a minute. I thought, I remember finding one relative, she was in a bar, and she couldn't get out, and the bartender couldn't hear her and wouldn't give her a drink. And I figured, oh my goodness, she got over, as spirit and just manifested herself as a holographic bubble with a bar, right? Because that's where she used to feel, she'd go just like to relax if she was stressed out, right? That one was easy. We just did it, intervene in somebody. First we tried to call her on the phone, and then that didn't work. A static got on the line. So then we had to go in and literally come in the door of the bar and say hi, and go and get her vodka and orange juice. That's what she wanted, right? And because the bartender could hear me, but couldn't hear her because she was slightly invisible to the bartender. Oh God. Anyway, Anyway, there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot that I would like to. I would like to be able to bring you to those spaces. If I'm really hoping that you will experience the way I did, not so much my dad's dreamscape, but the feeling up over the head when that certain thing opens. It was about 3 days it took since they did it. I don't know how they did it, but the Beloveds opened that for me. It was good because I felt like my body was going to die if they didn't, so I was going into review anyway, so I might as well pull all the plugs, gosh, get me out of here. But when they opened the window. They didn't tell me about the window. I just found on the third day, I had this coming back in from, I'd be asleep and I wake up, this just amazing expanded space that I hadn't known before, except in relation to being dead and coming in and that kind of stuff. And the third day, it hung with me all day. It comes and goes because you need to energize it, which they're going to teach us how to do during this, this workshop. But it was it's the most amazing feeling. And then after about the third day, the fourth day, I woke up, and before I got to that space from wherever I was in Saudi and stuff, because I kind of run all over the place when I'm free from the body, I could see it coming back in. And it looked like a pentagon-shaped window in crystal. As there was a crystal dome that I was coming back into, but it had this window in it. And then I got back in, and I could feel myself stopping and going, what was that? What did I just come through? Because I felt myself passing, my consciousness passing into this sphere toward my body that was inside of it. And it had this pentagon-shaped window open, and I'd never experienced that before. I guess I usually just kind of go as air through the sphere of crystal or whatever. But this was a very, distinct window structure, and I looked back, and sure enough, you could see it from the inside too. And I could hear Ma chuckling. Got your window open. What is that window? She says, you'll find out, don't worry. But I could see things through it. And then they did this neat thing with me where they bilocated a part of me through the window to a little bit further in the future to show me where we're going to be living and what the work was going to be out there, because they needed to get a part of my body, physical body, because we're at about a point where I can do bilocation, and where part of the atomic structure has transfigured enough where you can do bilocation. They literally took that part of the atomic structure, planted it in the future, and that self wouldn't look back and say, oh, I was born here and my timeline ended up here. No, that part knows she was pulled through a window and put in a different space-time location. She knows that she is me, and I am her, and I know that she is me. And they were showing me how to move my consciousness back and forth between the spaces. And there's this little trick they use in when I do my personal journalings to try to sort my own stuff out when I'm not in direct transmission. There was a trick that if I could shift my consciousness into that space, and I would feel that same place that I had felt before that, oh, I like it there. And it was looking back, I can see. Looking back, I'm me. I'm still me there. But looking back toward here, I can see and remember what needs to be done next. And it was actually used to downstep the workshop, because direct frequency coming into my body, this part of my body, which is the part that's not transfigured yet, it was going to kill it. So they literally pulled the other part out, got it in the future where the lines were a bit clearer open because of the planetary shield of Solomon thing, and angled it back over to me. So these are some of the potentials. There's just the beginnings of the potentials. The ones the window is open, you can start to do. Where literally, it's not just like a glide projection. A part of your body literally goes. And you can, when you get into a peaceful state and you're awake here, you can actually feel both simultaneously. And you can learn to think from there, which helps you get out from under whatever issues that you're trying to figure out here. Literally put yourself to the point in the future where you've solved them already. And it's a whole new level of being able to work with your own mind. So this is one of the things that we are going to learn how to do in this workshop set. But there's a lot of technicals that go with understanding what the Tiwa fields are and how to seed them. Because once we get the window opened, we will be able to seed things into the natural hydrolase cycle, solar symbiosis cycle, which is the process by not only which that eternal life bodies live, but it's also the process by which consciousness goes through its sequences and into atomic manifestation. So we're going to learn, they're going to teach us how to make morphogenetic templates so we can and put them directly into the hydroacoustic body. They're also going to teach us the first healing modality involving the ability to do this. So it's really exciting, and I hope, I hope I can go to that window and stay out there for a while to get all of this data in, and maybe I can put that give her some diagrams to get done over there, and I can do this here, right? We will have some of the new diagrams. I don't know how many I can get done, because I'm looking at 25 of them, like spread all over my desk in layers. It's like layers of knowledge. Yes, all over my desk, all over my floor. I mean, it's getting bad. When it gets really intense, a really intense line, it's like my office explodes. And I have layer upon layer of all sorts of things with scribbles of everything all over them, and they're all important, right? And you can't lose track. Oh no, that goes to that was, and I can't even find a place to put a can of soda down. Next, no, can't do that. Where'd the scissors go? Need to do a cutout. No, where? Oh no, can't find this. It's in that state, which means there's some really good data coming, right? When they give the diagrams. So I'll be working on those tonight and tomorrow during the day. That's why we'll be starting at 4:00 tomorrow, because I want to get as much of this in as I can. And some of this I'm still trying to wrap my brain around. Oh my God, Tiwas, we got all these new words. Okay, this is that, this, what is that breathing rhythm? Right, so I'm in that kind of place. I will get past that by the time it's time to bring that to you. But this is what I'm going to be doing in this evening and tomorrow during the day. And I hope we have an exciting time together. I'm excited for everyone here and for the planet and for us. I hope I can get enough of it through where we can really know it was a darn good workshop by the end of it. And if this is just the beginning, I can hardly wait to see the end workshop and slide. I'm really looking forward to it. And we'll all build. Like every slide workshop is important. There are points where you can catch up, but when you are in one, you will get the benefit of the field amplification as far as you'll get there faster. You don't have to go to every one. I know that's expensive, especially with airplane fares going what they're doing now. We're trying to figure out ways to work with that. If we could take off like 2 years and do nothing except write books, then we'd have some great programs to deliver. But meanwhile, people need to get this stuff happening now. There's not time to do that. And the shield amplification, every person that comes helps every other one. So there's a big thing. The reason why we're able to not be eaten alive by the Omega code that's running in the grids is because the group shield has got so strong. So for now, we're going to have to just keep doing this, this way, but we're going to try to keep it more civilized as far as trying to sticking to programs, even if they're later times. Sometimes we'll try to do our best to be there on time. We'll be there on time. And eventually, we will hopefully be able to get those books out where people can do, study course and that kind of stuff yourself, where you can, if you can't afford to go to a workshop. The way they structured these workshops, this whole set between now and 2012, though, is so if everybody couldn't go to every one, because that's a big financial commitment. You don't know where the finances are going in the U.S. right now. That you could come to one like the FOLs, or where you could pick up at least a shield activation of the ones you missed before. But some of them, you need to feel out which ones you feel most like you want to be at. If you couldn't come to all of them, which ones you feel the most for. Because some people need ones, the material most immediately that will be covered, say, in this one. Others will need the one that's covered in the next one. So just feel it out. There's no sequence of, oh yeah, well this will be presented and that's going to be old then. It's not going to be like that. There are some things that will be covered that will be something that you need, one person needs, but you need the other thing. So you have to really just sense it out. One of the things that we will be working with in tomorrow evening's side development session is learning to sense encryption a bit. There's something you can do with your fields once you learn a bit about your Tiwa fields and your mental body structure. There's a way of using that to learn to read encryption. So you can start to feel certain things out, and no matter what they appear as on the surface, you can feel if that's something that resonates or not. So that's one of the techniques that we're going to learn how to do. So I don't know how long I've been going on. About 5 minutes. I'm right about on time, aren't I? It was 7:35 when we came in. I mean, I was amazed. They're supposed to be here at 7:30, and it was 7:34 when we pulled up in the parking lot. I was so glad. I was off to a good start, you know. Thank you all for coming. We got a question?
Prayer for safe passage to heaven, is that going to still assist these people in these review loops?
Yeah, but there's more. You can use that. For now, that's the strongest thing we have. But what will help most are making those windows. And once we get the windows open for ourselves, if you're interested in helping the people in review loops that have already, passed their bodies here, that you can ask the beloveds, the Adashis, to, when you do the projections, that you would like specialized training, and you'll start getting it first in the dream state, but you'll find yourself in them. That's how you start getting training from the inside. I don't think we'll talk about how the way showers training works. That would be way showers training. Those who are interested in helping ones who have got stuck in the review loops, it is considered a way showers training job. And there are other types of training. So there's other job positions in the world of ascension. But it is a very noble one because there are a lot of people trapped there. One of the things, so I'm just getting this, one of the things we will be doing in opening a collective window like we are, will actually be opening a big window in several of those review loops, so they will be able to get out, and the beloveds from above can also come and help them. So we don't have to worry about, okay, well, I have to be me today down here, and then I have to go and pretend I'm an angel, or what am I today? And you just use a persona that can help a person get out, because it's the only way you can reach them when they're tied in a mind knot, and the mind knot becomes a reality knot. It wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the way the planetary fields are. That is what's causing the review loops. There would be review planes where you get out into that space and you kind of look back at your life and you can try this or try that again and take yourself back to when you were 4 and then take yourself back to, up to when you were like 90 and, try to play out things to understand. But then you would be free to go and you would be able to get yourself out and not loop and loop and loop. So these review loops of where a lot of the dead have, gone for eons here, we will be facilitating opening a large window. So in general, even if you might not be, like any one of you might not be the particular way shower that comes in to get the particular person you're after out, but you will open the window so they can. And we're going to do it on a mass level. I have a feeling that means there's probably going to be some interesting things happening in the next 10 years that you would need large windows for. To get them out, because I think there's going to be some things involving water. I don't know why, but not huge. It's not like everything's going to sink, but I think there's going to be some turbulence, and there's going to have volcanoes and things like that. We already have those, but we're going to get those windows open so that other people on this planet will have the ability to get out. This is also something that connects to the Bardo rites for people who are not going to transfigure, but who are doing full, taking the body out in Bardo. They talked to me a little bit about a training that they used to do when actually there was a whole bunch of them from Median Earth that died, and this is why I wonder if we're them down here or some of us here are them, because there were a bunch that when the Amenti Earth was split and Phantom Earth was formed, and then the other part was split and not quite pulled to Phantom, there were people that were in bodies there and their bodies died. I'm wondering if we're in a band that is a review band, and actually we had lost the physical bodies there. There was a way that the beloveds would bring those slide cities in with healing temples, so they would bring them in, and the important thing was, if they lost their physical bodies and didn't know it, up in the median earth level, right, they still had the Vibhati cell that we've talked about. And that original quantum was still stuck there. So they would be stuck. They wouldn't be able to ascend. So they had technologies where they would bring that back down. They would actually teach them how to reintegrate a lost Vibhati. That if you were in a reviewscape and you lost your Vibhati donated cell somewhere, you have to bring it back before you can release it and transmute it to get your original quantum back. So there's some sophisticated things that they used to do. But they did say that, no, we're not totally dead here. We're not like where the totally dead are. We're the living dead here, because I do believe I think what they mean by this, all right, I think they're laughing at me again up there, chuckling gently. They're saying, yes, this is like a review loop, all right, this is very much like a review loop. Some of the people here already actually have lost their bodies. Some of them were the ones from Tara. Some of the ones were from Median Earth. And some of us came in on purpose with our, like didn't lose a body. We actually birthed into a reviewscape. And I think that's probably where Azurites fit in, and indigos, where we actually came in to help get them out, the ones who could come. So there's a lot more to learn about that. And I'm still kind of going, okay, you sure I'm not dead? Right. But I feel more alive, just thinking about it. Anyway, we will be... There's a lot to learn this workshop, and I will do my best to deliver. It's amazing information. I will do my best to deliver it to you. Sometimes I get very, very frustrated and just say, well, why don't you please come down and deliver this on time? And you can do it better than me, right? But they can't do that right now. At some point they will. So what we're preparing for is preparing to actually have a meeting place, but before we could get to median Earth, kind of a zone, and that's what those like sliding cities would be, where they could come down without getting ill themselves, and we could be able to, if we got our DNA and some of the filters moved off the DNA, the epigenetic overlay cleared a bit, we would be able to walk into those sliding cities here. So we would be set up for experiences, and these are strange ones. I mean, you can have experiences that are very interesting, where you're driving down the road, and you drive the road every day, and that's there and that's there. You're on your way home. All of a sudden, that's there, and where am I? The road just changed, and you didn't make a turn, right? And the scenery is completely different, and you don't know where you are, right? These things can happen. It used to happen a lot with the hibernation zones, because they had certain portals open where people would end up in these little detours in the hibernation zones, and then they pop back out and come back home, right? Well, it's going to be a positive version of that with these spaces. So there's the beginning of preparing ourselves for the next level. I can hardly wait to see what it's going to be, but thank you for being here to share it with us, and I hope you have a great weekend. See you tomorrow. Thank you. Oh, God, I've been on the computer staring into it, doing this stuff since 6 o'clock this morning, and I got 2 hours sleep. I went to bed about 4 as I was doing graph stuff all that time. So it's been one of those transmissions. The Beloveds did say that it was going to progressively get easier as far as the time frames. I guess that's the distinction between the word progressively and immediately. I appreciate you being patient with this. I am just physically... I wish I could curl up in a ball and go to sleep somewhere for about a week. But when the wave comes through, I will be able to move with that and then, pass out later. So this is the information that we've got this time. What was taking so long on the computer today were 2 documents in themselves. Well, they're tiny print. They'd be a lot longer if they weren't in like 10-point type. But there were 2 key documents that explained processes that I didn't know yet either. I knew they existed, but I didn't know what they were. And one of them, the first one that they gave us, and this was really difficult to translate, to get them all down right, and it was like back and forth from the bottom one to the top one and stuff. It's called the First 12 Steps of Materialization, the Progression from Consciousness to Matter. This is the stuff that I've been wanting to understand for ages and wanting to be able to share with you. And it's very, very fascinating. We were going to cover this, but to cover this, there are a few diagrams that I will need to show first that help you to understand the regions that we might be talking about, and just to, get into where this process is occurring. So it's a fascinating process. And what's also fascinating with it is we have all these words that we've heard for so long, like hydros and ectos and this toast and that toast, right? They're starting to give the step-down translations. You'll have a sentence like, for instance, first hydroplasmic prematter substance. It is called hydros, and its D3 level is H2, hydrogen 2 hydrogen units. Its D2 step-down is O2, ozone, for example. Right? It's starting to plug in these things that we've been talking about for a long time right into what they actually are in the atomic structure here. But before we get into those, what's fascinating is understanding the process by which these things occur. And this is they call it the pentagonal transduction process. And that has to do with certain regions of our light body, spirit body, and Ajay body structures that we've talked about before. If I had had all this information, like a month in advance, I would have loved to put it together a sequence of graphs that would have taken 3 days, just them. Remember what this looked like, remember what that looked like, putting all the pieces together. There's not going to be time to do that. And they said, that's not important. That stuff is out there. And even if it's your first workshop, this stuff is already out there. You can find it. And these are the next level diagrams that I will bring us back to one or two that we've seen before. So you see where these new levels of these body structures fit and why these are so important. These are the hydroacoustic bodies. And the hydroacoustic body is the thing that you literally, when you breathe, every time you breathe, you send certain currents up into that hydroacoustic body that carry an encryption of what your last perception this way was. The last perception coming this way is because when you breathe in, it sends currents of energy out, of consciousness out, and they do certain things in the hydroacoustic body. They lay the imprint of the last one you just had, and then they circle back through so you see the next moment. It's what gives us our hologram in time, and that when it circles back through the process of the pentagonal transduction, and that is where first it becomes light, then it becomes atoms, and those atoms will follow the imprint that was put in from before. This is what the Tiwa planes are about, or the Tiwa field of the Ajay body. The Tiwa field is literally an energy structure of the Ajay body where when you have an energy current going out from yourself, and it's not just out in one direction, it's out in if your body's working normally, it's out in a 12-point, like a 12-point spark running the axiotonal lines. It goes out on not the axiotonal, sorry, running the fire chambers in the light body, and it intersects then with the Illurian chambers. So there's a whole process of understanding which comes first in that we're going to have by tomorrow, but I will be able to show you how these structures fit together so you'll understand the orientation of where. And I was most fascinated when they showed me where and how matter units. There's little things we call elements like hydrogen, oxygen. Where do these come from? We actually manufacture them. If our bodies are working normally, our bodies actually manufacture them as well as the Earth bodies and as well as star bodies. The problem with this planet is the planet can't manufacture them anymore. It has progressively been being killed, and these natural processes of transfiguration have been hijacked. And this is where we get to understand the hijacking of the pentagram and those kind of things. So I will put the first diagram up, please, Hen. Thank you. And once we see some of these structures, then we can get into talking more about. There's not a lot of Mylars, but there will be. There's two that. What? Yeah. There's two that are just these 2 pages, and it's not proofed or anything, so I can't really let it out for, giving a copy. But I'll see what I can do about that by tomorrow, because I would like to be able to give you a copy of this, and also of the other one that has to do with the fetal integration process. But the fetal integration process, by the way, once you understand what exactly happens, how does that spirit get into the body, right? We know how the structures were formed. We've covered that in other, how the structures of the spirit body and things form from when egg and sperm come together. But the fetal integration process is a very specific thing that has to do with, all right, you have these spirit body structures and the Ajay body and the light body, at the beginning of the light body structures, and then you have this baby body, right, that is growing already inside of the womb. When do these two intersect with each other, where they connect? When is that point of tethering? And that's what the fetal integration process or point is. From that point, a certain process is set in motion. And why they want us to know this process now is because it's exactly the same process that is repeated over and over once it starts. It is the manifestation process. And there's a way that starts in a fetal body when you, as a new incoming person, comes into that baby body. And it's in the womb between the 33rd and 56th day. And it's an amazing process. It is the manifestation process. It's the same process we will use a version of to seed thoughts so we can start to learn to manifest directly. Because basically you set a template into the Ajay body, and this process of the pentagonal step down or transduction is set in motion. And it literally manufactures the elements, and the elements will follow the instruction of organizing that is set in that pattern you put into the Ajay body. So these are the real core mechanics of not just manifestation, that's getting things into light, but materialization, how that light turns into matter. And we can understand it very clearly through the fetal integration process. We'll also be able to understand through that document, and I will read that one. And that's kind of a doozy, right? And I didn't have a chance to put it in big type or anything, but I will read that and then stop and talk about things in between. It also helps us to understand what happened to us down here. And it literally, it explains the process that is supposed to happen. And it would have taken me another whole day to get down the process as it works now because it doesn't work properly. But we will talk about that, and I will go live on that one after we do the reading. So there's certain things I want you to understand before we get to that. I would like you to understand, first of all, the structures that we're talking about when we talk about the Lumeradana. We've seen this before, and this is the Lumeradana spirit body, and the spirit body structure, and we all have one. And around it here would be what we're referring to as the Ajay body. And the Ajay body is literally a capsule that forms and expands out around the, I believe around the records, the Akashic and the Akushik and the Rishaic record seeds, the Rasha seed it's called, when at a certain point. We'll look at those points, like how that all gets to be there first. We've done that before, but we'll do it at the end. But I just wanted to remind you of the structure of the Lumeradana spirit body once it grows and becomes its full self. And it grows to become its full self through those processes we discussed before of the kushas and the Siddha cycle stages and all of that. So this culminates in this part of the new identity structure building, and that comes first. It's the spirit body. These are the flows that we've talked about before. They're the Illyrian chambers aren't shown here. These are showing the Navajo flows. There's ones that look like figure eights on each of what would be the Illyrian chamber lines. The Illyrian chambers are where in the Rasha body levels the pre-substance and pre-matter start to occur, and it moves outward from there into the light body structures. So there's these layers of spheres within spheres of energy, and inside of this you would also have your light body structure. We have other diagrams someplace that I didn't have time to dig out that show how they're aligned with each other, that show, okay, where does the light body come to and all that. But when you try to draw them all on top of each other, you can't see what you're looking at anymore because there's so many layers, so we tend to do them in pieces. But when we're talking about the hydroacoustic body, which is the Ajay body, it is the parameter around all of the rest, and the rest grows inside of that. So we grow from the time of fertilization, this process of this bubble expanding around us, and then our light body structure, spirit body structure, well, first spirit body, and then light body structure, and then our more immediate consciousness structure of what's called the Vibhati sac. They grow inside of that, and that's all tethered to the fetal body that started with the point of egg and sperm coming together. And what's called a Vibhati quantum, which was a quantum of energy donated by both parents when they came together. There's a spark that is created that creates what's called the Vibhati cell, and it's the donated quantum that allows the baby body to grow in the parent's womb and the mother's womb here. Men can do the two up there. Right? Whoops. Yeah, I'm really tired, so if I'm like tripping over myself, sorry. But at the point of fetal integration is actually the point where the new spirit coming in tethers the rest of its body that already grew, the light body and the spirit body and all that, and the Ajay cell right to the fetal body. And that's the point where the parent quantum stops generating cellular growth. So literally what is growing the baby body while it's in the womb from the point of fertilization until the point of fetal integration is not the new spirit, the new soul, anything. It is the process of the parent donated energy from the Vibhati cell fueling cellular growth following the pattern that is set in the genetic code. And the genetic code is set in patterns called the biological time filters that are in the Vibhati cell. And that's how we get the filters of our parents, and they're passed on and passed on. So Anyway, we'll get to fetal integration again when we get toward the end of this, but I would like you to understand a little bit about the fascination of how atoms or elements are formed. And it starts with understanding the basis of this structure, and that's the Lumeridana spirit body. There's other ones that show that you have the Hara body structures with them. Each one of these on the larger scale represents a vector line with 2 horizons on it. So there are 6 vector lines with 2 horizons, forming 2 horizons each. And they constitute the Allurian chambers, the Allurian elemental command chambers. We'll see in a minute, this structure is connected to the light body through the structures of the what are called the fire chambers. They're a version of these lines that run in the light body structures, which come later. So the spirit body and the Ajay bodies are the bodies that come first, and they are your most eternal self. All right, that is where your most eternal consciousness lives. And the light body grows, just like the physical body grows, as that consciousness steps from here into those smaller structures within the Ajay cell. Next one, please. Now, this is I want to show you a little bit. There's about a ton of these that aren't done yet, but I can show you the relationship that I would like you to understand, because it's very important in understanding how the stuff of spirit becomes the stuff of light and then the stuff of matter. This, again, would represent the same thing you saw there, which is the Lumeridana spirit body, and all of those together. What we're looking at simply is taking out all the other flows, so you can just see where the Allurian chambers would run. Right? This would be the Allurian chamber, number 11. That would be number 12. And where the light body fire chambers run. They run in between. And there's this relationship by where energy is created in between the Rasha body and the spirit body and the Ajay body. And then currents flow up out of here and split. When they hit the outer parameter, like they're inside a bubble, they go up and out on these lines. And when they hit the parameter of the bubble, they turn around and become what are called refracted code particles of different types of currents. Pranas and stuff like that are formed that way. And when one line of energy is coming out this way, and it hits the outer parameter of this, and what it's actually hitting is called the Vibhati sac that you'll hear in the fetal integration process, where that forms. It forms, as fetal integration is occurring, but it will split, and part will go this way, and part will go this way. So these Allurian chambers feed the fire chambers on each side. All right, that goes all the way around. So this one will feed these two, that one feed these two. So you start getting blending currents happening in the light body fire chambers. This is important when it comes to understanding the elemental charts, because each one of these lines, we've talked about this when we did Rasha body training, each one of the Allurian chamber lines has specific codings for 12 specific elements. So you get 12 specific elemental families, and they are the first 12 elements that are on the atomic charts, from hydrogen all the way up to magnesium, number 12. And then they create children, all right? So you have the 12 elemental families, the first ones. One would form on each of, first their pre-state forms in each of the Allurian chambers, and then they combined and bring their currents into the fire chambers and combine and progressively step up into matter to become the simple elements that make the ones that our scientists can find here. So if we can understand the simple part is this exchange between the fire lines. Something comes up out here, Allurian chamber, and then it splits and feeds both of the fire lines on either side. You start to see how the currents start to blend, right? This becomes important when understanding who's on first as far as what elements come from where and how can you step them down or whatever and understand what they can be here, right? There are 3 levels to the structure of the light body, the one density level light body, all right? You have your Ajay body around it. You actually have the Ajay body around the you know how you have your density 1 level self here, then density 2, density 3, and density 4. Then you actually have your Ajay body out there. But there are smaller little Ajay structures that are around each density that separate the densities from each other. So that is where our density 1 currents bounce off from. All right. You can also open those currents all the way up to the full level, and that's what we're going to be working on doing. But as far as elementals, the elemental structures of literally elements like hydrogen and things are formed through this interchange with these chambers. But to find out like once you can list them all out on which line carries which ones. That's the first part. I have charts that I'm working on just with that. I'll show you in a little while where it's going to become an amazing chart that shows all the lineups of how you can translate. And once you have that into other charts, you can actually translate any of the elements here. You can find out which one they came from, which means what are they on D3, what are they on D1, so you can find each level of them. Once you know those things, there's something that we'll talk about tomorrow that's called the elemental alphabet. Once you know who's who and who made them, you can start calling on the parents, which are the parent elements that created them, and literally working consciously with those forms of consciousness, because they're not just thingies, they're conscious. And the procedure of this, the 12 steps of materialization, show how, if anybody ever doubted that atoms are conscious, this shows you how the translation happens. It started with consciousness. They're made of consciousness. They didn't become unconscious in the process of becoming atoms. So our matter is literally alive. It can die by being cut off from these breathing processes, because the processes of the entire light body, spirit body, Ajna body, and physical body structure are intertwined. When we breathe, our heart rate and all of that has to do with the circulation of the currents that are formed in and out. And when those currents can't go in and out like they're supposed to, that is when we become finite, when our matter cannot self-regenerate anymore, and when we progressively die. The fetal body will die. So we're going to understand first a little bit about how we got the atomic translations that you'll hear here and there through the workshop. And that helps us understand about the water. And we'll get to the water too. That has to do with understanding the water is why they gave us the 12 steps of materialization. So we see where this fit in the sequence of how things come into materialization, why water here is so important, and why water here, the way it is right now, is considered dead water, and how to bring it back to life again. So without understanding these basic things that we're going to talk about, it would be very vague as far as trying to put together how exactly does that work. So I wanted to show you a little bit about what I've been actually suffering through for the last 2 weeks of trying to get these translations. It starts with understanding the lines, because they didn't just say, oh, here, write that down. No, they said, here's that chart, here's that. Now, do you want to know what the D3 level, if this is D3, like they gave us the formula a long time ago for hydrolase, but on D3, which was H2O2 He3, right? But what is that here, right? There's a step-down process that occurs, and to translate, the translations take quite a while for even one. It's amazing what you have to do with 3 different charts, and who's the parent and what line is that on, and if it's line number this on D2, which means it's line number this on D3, but then there's also D1, so it means it's line number that on D1, which would be the etheric level. You have to line all those up. Then you have to count up on the atomic chart what all right, say you're in the hydrogen line, right? I'll show you the charts in a little bit. As far as we've seen them, I've showed them briefly before, like our version of the atomic charts, where you just have like 1 through 12 going across the bottom, and then 13, 14, 15 going across in a row of 12, and you have 12 lines going up. There are 144 natural occurring elements. But you'd have to go find out what line it is on. Say it's hydrogen, right? So you know you're looking for hydrogen here. Then you have to find, okay, what number? If you're looking for your number, say 70, whatever that is, you'd have to find 70 on the chart, trace the line down to see what its base element is, right? Count up how many that was. That would be child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, all the way up, and translate that first into D3, then into D2, and then into D1, or even just down to D2, just to get the D2 translation. And then you have to, if you have a complex substance, even as simple as H2O, that's a couple of families. That's not just one, like H, right? So you have to go find, all of them, then plug them in together to find out what they really are on each level. So it's a fascinating process, and it begins with understanding how the elements form in the first place, from the Rasha body levels and the spirit body levels that carry the Illyrian elemental chambers that split their currents and bring them into the fire chambers of the light body structure. And it's in the fire chambers of the light body structure, and in relation to its connection to the Ajna body structure, that allow for matter to happen. And it does happen through this process, and we'll describe the process a little more. If we can think of, I haven't had the time to draw the circles, this is where the light body stops, and this is where that stops. But this, again, would represent out here would be like the Ajay body structure. Out here. In here, we have an interesting structure of the light body itself, the levels of mind. All right, where is our I amness? Where does our I am conscious come from? Our ego, for example, the part that looks out on 3D. What are those other levels of consciousness? Even just in density 1, the structure of these bodies, of the light body parts that are connected into and exist within the Ajay body and the spirit body construction. There are levels to each of these. Wherever you see these little hairy lines, right? All right, you'll also see they're connected to dimension numbers. Here we have where D3 mental body structure starts, what we consider the atomic plane of the mental body, right? That goes down to D2. In between here, you have this little fuzzy line that indicates it's actually at the 3.5 level. If there's 12 sub-frequency bands in that one dimension in D3, that would be at the 3.5 sub-frequency band. This is the place where certain things happen in the relationships between the light body, the spirit body, and the Ajay body that consciousness flashes on. And this is where you get your I am presence. This is where your Iran stream of consciousness continually reawakens itself. Why you're still, it happens so fast that you see a continual stream, even though you don't notice you're flashing off. Because our consciousness goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back, right? And we have a continual stream of consciousness because of the body filters that are in that cell that we inherited from our parents. It set the biological patterns, the gene code, the encryption that came from both parents together, which also had the encryption for the planet and the time vector and the particular planes on this planet and time vector we're in. So we take that on when we come into the fetal body. So anyway, if here we have the D3 level that's considered the mental body structure. It is made of atomic energy, which is the stuff that is 3/3 spirit, 3/3 manifest, which means there's no part of it in the spirit body, right? So it's independent, and that's the most vulnerable area because of that. When you get into the D2 level, D2 would be here, and it goes down to here. There's another fuzzy area in D2, right? But this part, it would have its own 12 sub-frequency bands. This one is telluric energy, which is 2/3 of mana and 1/3 spirit or ire energy. So it's not as vulnerable as the D3 level one that has no part of itself interacting with the spirit body level. And then you have down here, D1, that would run down to here and down to here, right past that little fuzzy line into there. And then you would have the Rasha body structures. All right, where they connect in to the rest of the process. And they are the dark matter structures. That's where all sorts of things happen first to begin the pre-substances that will come out into the light body to progressively form first light and then literally stages and states of matter and atoms. So we have Rasha body, D1 level of our etheric body, and D2 level of our telluric body. This is the part of the body we see as solid. This is where our solid atoms are here. And if we're standing at the center, these are the fields around us that are actually creating these levels or planes of our own manifestation. We don't see our etheric body from here. Here, and we don't see our mental body from here. We are actually stationed in the mental body structure looking down, and we see a solid, what's a dimension down from us. We see a solid matter. So you have the D1, D2, and then D3. Then out here, you have what are called the Tiwa fields. The Tiwa fields of the Ajay body. This is where the light body and the light body and the Ajay body intersect with each other. And they intersect on the fire lines and the Illyrian chamber lines. And there's little, they call them Tiwa somethings. Let's just call them nodes for the moment. I can't remember what they're, orons, right? Tiwa orons that are on each of the, I believe, fire chambers. And there's something that happens when energy comes out to these chambers, and it comes out all at once. It doesn't come out like one and then another. It comes out all in one burst, a 12-point burst. And there's an interaction that occurs where portions of the light body open up temporarily to the to the Ajay body, which means the finite part of yourself, because you can become temporarily finite or mortal once you get into fetal integration, because you're inside of this thing, and you have all of these layers, and you have a filter that is around this layer. All right, this is around right about here. There's a filter called the Vibhati cell, and that, or sac. That is a sac that grows outward. You get your consciousness in to the fetal body, and then you actually expand outward. So you're expanding the Vibhati cell layer around you, and it expands out with your light body. So it gives you literally a filter, a spherical filter that holds your parent program in there, and that is where your thoughts go. But if there's a distortion in that body, it will distort your thoughts. It will distort your energy processes. And that is what's happening on this planet. It's happening in the planetary fields as well. It's happening in the galactic fields here in the Milky Way as well. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, I'd love to have all the words on these, but I'm just trying to do it from what I remember so far, because it takes so long to make just even one of these by hand. It drives me crazy, but I get there. And some of them are so detailed, you can't really, I couldn't do them on computer. I just don't have the computer skills or the time to learn them. Anyway, we have the D1, the D2, the D3, and then here you have the Tiwa fields. And the Tiwa means, what does the word Tiwa mean? It means to transfer and turn back again, or to transfer and turn around. So this is where the energies turn around and start interacting with each other to form the other currents. It is literally the area of the Ajay body that creates the currents that become the matter currents. So when we talk about Tiwa fields, we're talking about the larger structure from here. You got mental body down here, and the Tiwa fields run up really from here to here. There's the lower Tiwas and the upper Tiwas, and it's past this point, which would be the 6.5 subfrequency band in the Tiwa field, that would be free from the direct interface with the light body. So that is where your pure spirit consciousness is. What's interesting about the Tiwa capsule, not Tiwa capsule, but the entire Ajay capsule, is that that is your immediate source consciousness field, your little source consciousness field. You came in from somewhere. Your consciousness came in as a stream of energy following a particular path to form this Ajay body around you, and there was a quantum of consciousness that was put in as yours, and that consciousness progressively steps down and into, first of all, the fetal body, and then grows the body outward. So when you're growing, when the body is growing from the fetus all the way through, it is taking the energies that first came into the core and into the Ajay body, and then spirit body, and progressively bringing them in to expand the form as you bring what was in the Ajay capsule into full embodiment. And the idea is to then transfigure the atoms, clear the Vibhati filters and the Vibhati sac, and then you have your Mashaya body through transfiguration of the atomic structure. But that process is not working here. That process isn't working because of the distortions that have been put into that distort the Tiwa fields. And we'll talk about what the distortions are later. I'd like to show you first how it's supposed to work, because this is what we're aiming to going back toward, is reestablishing these natural flows. So you have Tiwa fields out here. You're going to see some interesting things with Tiwa fields and find out what the pentagonal transduction code is about in a little bit. But I also want to point out these little fuzzy bands that run from, so if D2 ends here, it means D3 starts here, right? So this would be like the D2 first subfrequency band, second one, third one. And this would be 3.5, which means in between subfrequency band 3 and 4, right? And that happens on each one of them. This would be the 3.5 level of each of those bodies. That 3.5 level has certain interactions between the currents that are flowing up and down the Illyrian chamber lines and fire chambers that literally create that spark of I am consciousness, that I am aware, right? Repeatedly over and over, that gives you your Iran stream of consciousness. And that means for each of these levels, there is an I am. We call them the I am bands, because this is where the levels of your mind actually are. You have the I am ego. It would be this one that runs in the D. It actually runs right above the D2. And you'll see in a little bit, I don't have all the diagrams done, but it shows how in between these, you actually get where the energy bodies form. So these fields are like the electromagnetic background that certain other energy fields that form a smaller version of your Huva bodies that are around you, that allow for, they're like matter clouds to form, so your atoms can come together and physicality. But what I want you to understand first is these are like the EM fields, or the background fields that matter manifests in. And you have a level of it on the D1 level, your etheric level. You have the D2 level, which would be the telluric level, that elemental level we see as matter manifest here, and the D3 level. Now you'd also have a set of these bodies expanding out bigger and bigger and bigger, one for each density. This is just one density level of the body structure, the density 1 level. Well, with this structure, you have here the one that corresponds with the D3 body. It's in the D3 frequency field at 3.5. It actually runs between 1 and 3.5. This is your I am ego self. This is the part of yourself that looks down on this and sees it as conscious. If you go in here, this is the D2 level. This is your own I am body consciousness, right? So you have your body consciousness awareness level too. And normally these are open to each other. The problem is, we're really out of tune with our bodies, and our bodies are out of tune with us, is because these flows have been shut down and they don't work properly. So you have your I am body consciousness here, and you have your I am atoms consciousness here, where it's literally the etheric level of the atomic structure. And they're literally levels of awareness that normally you're aware of all of them when you're in a healthy body. And what's really nice is up here. Guess what that one is? Anybody want to guess? I am God self? I am God self. That is that space. That is the space that I was telling you about. All of a sudden there was just, and I remembered a space that I had passed through, didn't know what to call it, but I remember it from doing the walk in and walk out, and I remembered it from when Katie had the near-death experience with this body. This is where that is. It's the I am God self space. And this is where you look down on the whole thing, and it seems just like a little dream or a little thought, or, it's like, oh, and it doesn't worry you, and you just feel peaceful, and everything feels harmonious. And it's like, that's a place that when you find it, it's really hard to come back, right? You don't want to come back. But, and the idea is once you do find it, then it's worth coming back. Because once you can find that, that means something opened. And I didn't know what the window was. I told you the story about how I was seeing it, like up kind of over here somewhere. What is that, right? And we find in the reading that we'll do about fetal integration, we'll find out what that window is more specifically. But the window corresponds with going from the boundary between the D3 levels and into this space and out. It's actually the boundary that crashes through here and goes out into these spaces. It opens, and it has to do with the process of fetal integration. It's supposed to open when fetal integration occurs. And the problem with our bodies, they are mutated from the point of conception on because the parents carry the mutations. And that window does not open. And there's things that correspond at the core, in the core, that do not open either. So literally there is a finite quantum of energy that we got into our spirit, or into our Ajay bodies, grew our spirit bodies, and then at a certain point the process of integrating those was cut, where certain things that were supposed to happen that would open all of these flows did not. Instead, only light body flows got opened. So literally the spirit currents of prana can't come into the body. It's a horrible thing that was done here. The more I see of it, the more I just want to bite. I know, forgive him, I know, gotta love him anyway, I know, how could you let them do that, right? But, I'm working on that stuff. I'm not really angry, it saddens me to see the process, but I'm also overjoyed that we still can get this information back so we can finally understand and heal ourselves. And they're getting pretty serious about the level of knowledge they're giving us, if they're giving us the atomic codes here that go with certain things. But the thing is, you can't, some of these elemental substances, science won't be able to stuff stuff together even in particle accelerators to make it stick. It's not going to work. They have to be stepped down, which means they have to be manufactured organically. This planet can't manufacture them anymore, but we can. And that's why for many eons there has been Azurite hunting and hunting of indigos by the fallen groups that wanted to continue controlling this process here, because we do carry gene codes, and the collective shield has the ability to open the windows within our own self and get those flows back on. And if we do that, we will be able to pass it on to others. At first it will be through touch, but that's just a temporary stage. Otherwise, it will be just through direct thought-to-thought communication. It also allows us to open the Bardo chambers. It allows us to crash through a hole in the screens, the net screens that they have, where we will be able to get people out on Bardo. We will be able to get people out on Ascension. We will be able to eventually slide, even with our molecular structure. And if you can't slide, if your body is crashing out underneath you, you can still get out because there's a natural Bardo process. All of those require that window to be open. And the window has to do with, I believe, Illyrian Chamber 12. And it's connected in up here, and it connects into the fire chamber, or whatever's on the other side of that. That's one, and I think that's fire chamber 12. Yeah, I can't see the numbers well from here, but it's up here, and it runs from here to here. And it is actually a pentagonal window. There would be a pentagon-shaped thing. And I'll show you where the pentagon-shaped things come from in a minute. But that is the window that we are going to be opening. We'll read more about it in the manuscript because they can word it better than I can. But that I at least finally found it. Ah, that's what that is. Neat, you know? So it is a pentagonal-shaped window that comes from up here. It connects to a door that exists in the body, that exists in the seed atom, that is supposed to be opened, and that wasn't opened in fetal integration either. Our bodies never had these flows opened. We've been able to work with light bodies and start to get a little bit of the spirit body structure in as we were working with the Rasha bodies. But to have it all the way open to the Age level, we have never been able to do that yet. That's why we had to build up over the years all of these technologies to work with each level until we could finally get to this one. And there is a very special something that is called the eternal water seed that is the spark of consciousness, and I mean the start of consciousness. It is an atom, and we were born without that atom because of the mutations here. We are going to have the opportunity to get that back, and they're going to do it sometime during this workshop. I don't know, tonight or tomorrow, but I had no idea about that part. That was part of the stuff that came out. That's why we had to hold it up to get this information in, because I didn't know it either. Right? So we'll start with opening a window that later becomes a door, and in that door there is the eternal water seed, and that is the seed that links directly through to the Hall of Record, your own Hall of Records that are part of the spirit body structure, and into the Age core. And this allows for the turning back on of the natural flows that would normally go between the Illyrian chambers and the light body fire lines. So it is the beginning of being able to breathe again on an atomic level. And that is the first step. The reason why we have to start with the mind. Before we can prepare the body for slide, we have to prepare the mind, because this is the mind. This is the structures of it, right? We have the D3 ego level here. We've got the body consciousness. We've got the, you could call it the atomic molecular consciousness and the etheric. And we've got the God consciousness level. These are all structures that are controlling. The third dimension level on each one of them is the one that is connected to, in which each of the densities is the one that is connected to the Tiwa planes. And it is that one that controls. The Tiwa planes are where, when you breathe a pattern out, it sticks and it forms a morphogenetic field for what the atoms will do through the fire chambers and how they will manifest when they come down. So the Tiwa planes are the most important. They control a couple other things here. There's little bands at the 6.5 level. I don't have them marked here. I just got them dotted lines. But each level, just like it had a 3.5 level where the I am happens, it also has a 6.5 level. And that 6.5 level are where there are smaller filters they're like little versions of the Tiwa planes. And the one that goes with the D3 one, they consider this one. All right, so the one that's up here in the main Tiwa planes is considered the corresponding one to the D3 mental body. Then this one here is a smaller one, corresponds to the D2 physical telluric body, and then there's another one down here that corresponds to the D1 body. So you have these Tiwa levels, but they have different names. The one that this is the main Tiwa plane. The one that corresponds, actually, this is, no, I just described that wrong. This one does just go with the Tiwas. This is the D3 one. The D3 one at 6.5 is, I forget the word for it, it's Tiwa something or other. It's a longer version of Tiwa. It's Tiwa something stuck on the end of it. This one, the D2 one, is right here at 6.5, and that one is called the Grual. Right? I think that was the Gruel. Nope, that's the Gruel. That's right. I'm trying to remember. They just taught me this stuff. So I'm like, which was what? Yeah. This one was called the Gruel. Now remember we talked about the Gruel controls and they're associated with D2, right? The D2 telluric. It's in D3, controls D2 matter base, right? So this is where when you think, when your body thinks thoughts, right, they go up into here. When you think thoughts, it goes up into here, and this serves as a little Tiwa field where it sets things and beams them back down. All right, so that one is called the Grual field, and it is the Grual that we've talked about, the Holy Grual, because it controls the D2 structures, which are the telluric structures, which are the physical atoms we're walking around in. Then there is the one that corresponds with the D2 dimensional planes, and that one is called the what they call it, the Jandas. The Jandas, and it does the same thing as the larger ones, but it sends the energy in the manifestation or materialization back down to the D1 level. And then there's one more on the D1 level that corresponds to the Rasha body. Through these filters, energy comes up, bounces off, turns around, and comes back and manifests into matter form. And it does it on the D1, the D2, the D3, and the larger density level. This is why we've, for the most part, most spiritual paradigms out there teach you to ignore the mental body. I wonder why. Right, because it is the control. They don't teach you about these structures because these structures right now have been harnessed where we can't control our thought forms because they're being controlled for us. And we're going to learn to break through that. So this is the beginning of understanding the different levels of mind and the states of mind. These have to do also with where the filters of distortion are. Our ego level would be in the D3 band, right? But it's this little D from D1, the subfrequency band 1 to 3.5, right? That band there would be considered where our ego awareness is. And the ego is the awareness that creates the epigenetic overlay, that chemical overlay on the DNA that signals genes to tell them what to turn off, what to turn on, and how to sequence. So that is the control for the biological processes. And that is very severely blocked. Right now, where we should just have these lovely shining crystal bands, spheres, layers in our fields. What we have instead of these nasty twisted carbon buckyball ones, which are C60, carbon 60, artificial light, unnatural, not living light, that was mutated light from the light body structure. Our own light bodies were turned against us, basically, to control the atomic flow. And they were done not individually. This was done because it was done to the planet. And that was done to the solar fields, and it was also done in the Milky Way. And most of the places in the Milky Way have the same problem. So until science gets out of astronomy gets out of the Milky Way and maybe goes check out some living systems, they're going to see some really strange laws of nature that aren't natural at all. Because what the distortions do, this should have, for every action, there's an equal and appropriately balanced reaction. Instead, what is created is an equal and opposite reaction, which means a finite quantum of energy keeps bouncing off and recirculating, recycling until it burns out. And that is what happens with our bodies. So it was fascinating to know that we were actually born without what is called the water seed. And whole generations of our races on this planet. The animals have the same problem. We can start healing others in a big way once we get our window open, our Tiwa window open, that will allow us to open the door that brings back in the water seed. That is the final piece of it. We've talked about seed atoms and taran seed atoms and prana seeds and all these pieces of things that we got in the center, somewhere down in there in the azure that you can't see, right? They're in there somewhere, and they connect us to those other parts. This is the one that is the open living connection. It's called you'll see why it's called a water seed once we get through the 12 steps of materialization that show why there's a very special first manifest substance. And it isn't hydrogen that comes first. It is the first element. Water, real water, is not just that. Here it seems like they think, the little one's built and then they stuck something else to them. Yeah, that happens where, elements will build to form compounds. What they don't realize is there are larger compound structures that come apart and make those little families of atoms or elements that then come together. So there is a thing behind the first 12 families of the atoms that we know here, of the elements that we know here. And that thing is very connected to what we would call water, if it were living water. It is not H2O, but they've given us the formula for what that is. But it's not water that can be made in a test tube. It's water it's living water that involves a stages before that involve what's called celestaline and celestalon and celestalite. Three different ones. You'll see where they fit. And all of this has to do with getting the breathing processes back through here. So I've laid out the basic structures of this is just your 3D Huva body. Your Huva bodies are in here. Your radial body, I believe, comes to about here. I think the radial body comes up to here. You know, the radial body we talked about in the Kathara, like 2, 3, and even in Kathara 1, I think we introduced radial body and the different parts of that. They all grow within this. Excuse me. So, sorry. And I think right up to here is where, when we talked about radial body, we talked about the Miage field and the Trion field and the Rayon field. I think here is I think it's here. I don't have it written on here. It's either here or here, but I think it's here. Is the boundary of the Trion field, where if you drew a Kathara grid, that would be the Kathara center 11. That from there down, you'd get from there 11 to 2, you'd get the circle, the size of the Trion field, and then inside there, which would be right around here, right around the D2 body, you have the Miage field or the magnetic field. So this is where the radial body structure and all that we've in crystal body and all that we've taught fits in. That it literally grows inside of the Ajay capsule with its Tiwa fields. But the Tiwa fields are the control fields. And we are working with the mental body because this is one connected to the big Tiwas, the density Tiwas that control the other Tiwas. So if you could try to release this, but it's as above, so below. The Tiwa up here that goes with here controls this one. This one controls that one. This one controls that one, and that one. So to free the body, the 3 levels, 3-dimensional levels of the body, we have to start with the mind. And we have to go through the mind and into this Tiwa field and open what is the natural pentagonal window that would allow the natural processes of the Illyrian chambers interacting with the fire chambers to turn back on the flows. So we're going to turn back on the flows in the work that we do in this 2-day workshop. Seems like 2-year workshop sometimes. I never get there. Next one, please. Do what? Okay. Is that the next one? That's the one I need, yeah. Now, I have 50 to 100 of these that all have vital information that I have to then pull apart and get it into legible form, because this is how this stuff comes in, right? What this is, or going to be. Now, put the first one back up just for a minute, so they see what is that, right? All right, you're looking at this, right? I put these 2 good ones together, but they're not proportioned to each other, so it would be misleading. So these are the flows, remember, of the spirit body and the Lumeridana and all the core flows and all of that, right? All right, now let's go back to that one. That is what that little one is up in the corner, right? And what I did was take one of those and quickly draw. This is how the information that got bigger on the graphs you just saw before, or the ones you'll see next. It started here, where they showed me first of all the specific lineup of if you have Illyrian number 12, for example. Up here we have it on top. I usually have it over here because the light body that we're used to looking at the light body being up. They're at a different angle to each other. You have the Ajay body and the spirit body are on this angle. You'd have this would be their 12, so that would be 6, right? You have 3 and 9. So there's your Illyrian chambers, right? But it's offset where you have A12 or Illyrian 12, and over here you have Illyrian 11, and at what would be Illyrian 11.5, that is where I think it's 11, 10, whatever, 11, I have to count them. Wait a minute. Oh, I have to go for the D3 level, right? Where the D3 level of the fire chamber 12. So you'd have D3 fire chamber 12, and on this side of it, you would have the A12, and on that, the A11, because it lines up at the A11.5 is where you put the 12 point of the Kathara grid, which is where the 12 chamber of the fire chambers is. This gives you this offset all the way around. That's hard enough if you were just dealing with one dimension, D3, right? Now what you do, you have to find, first of all, you have to find out which way what is spinning, And also take into consideration that we've always taught that in between one dimension and the next, there is a 90-degree shift of angular rotation of particle spin, right? Now we are in what would be considered a female universe, has a female monad, our planet. So this means that the density bodies are spinning. D1 would spin clockwise, and D3 would spin clockwise normally, and D2 would spin, the Gruol spin would match the monad spin. Should be counterclockwise. So to line up these numbers and know what chambers are what on which level, this is the secret to being able to analyze the step-down process. Because this process has to do with, in the Tiwa fields up in here, there's a specific process of atomic step-down where light is made and then progressively becomes matter, but very specific matter. Each one of the Illyrian chambers has a pattern or a set encryption for 12 different elements. So there are 12 chambers, and it gives you 12 times 12 is 144 natural elements. And they then combine and come down fire chambers, and those elements, the pre-elements, blend and become the manifest elements. You have to actually trace the spins, and I won't even try to analyze that right now with this diagram, but I do have them. This is actually clear enough where I was able to pull translations. It is correct, but it's just like I'm used to looking at it in micro, where I can do my things really quick, and I get in this like focus that's like a laser beam. It's hard to do that when I'm up here doing this. So the translations that you will see came from. They didn't just say, here, call that, here, put an H2O there, put it there. No, they show, here's this, and then here's several other pieces of things. So you find that first, that's your key. Then there's several other keys, and once you know that, you have to find this other thing, and then find this, and then you can find the step down. The step down is, it starts the parents, right? The parent ones, you would have 2 parents. For each fire line that creates a manifest set of 12 atoms, you would have 2 parents that were the Illyrian chambers, right? You would have one that bends its energy this way, one that bends its energy this way to go down the fire chamber where atoms are made. So you have command elements, 2 parent families, and there's ways they're going to teach us, I think, a bit about tomorrow, of being able to call on them. Because what if you call on them and open those flows, it will start to straighten out the flows of all of their children. And each of their children, each line, each fire line would hold one of the, it has a set of 12. So a set of 12 it would have its primary, like main child, number 1, and then it would have like line 1, number 1 would be hydrogen, for example, right? Line 2, number 1 would be helium, right? But then there's a whole chain of them going up of elements on the chart that give you specifically what atoms are made from that family as the currents step down from the Tiwas, the density level Tiwas, into D3, then into D2, then into D1. And that's the key to translating the elemental code. So we know what it is. And if they say, oh, well, that's, hydrolase. Well, what is hydrolase? H2O2 He3. Huh? Oh, but that's on D3. Right. Okay. What is it on D2? And they never tell me. Why? Because they're going to make me work for it, I guess. Because if not, well, they wouldn't have had to show me this, and then we wouldn't be learning how this works. So we understand the processes we're involved in. But it's fascinating. I'm looking forward to when I get these diagrams done, very clear ones, and I will definitely, they'll definitely be put out at a workshop, in published form at some point. But a lot of this will be. It'll take ages to write a book about this, but even doing a chart pack with some of this to give people the keys, and that's what I would like to be able to do. So I'm in the progress of doing this, but there's more to add, and it's like there's never time to go back. They keep giving me more stuff on top of that. So I have millions of papers everywhere, that I can't throw those away, because they have all the real detail pieces. I will try to get this one done as soon as possible, but it won't be done by tomorrow. So I just wanted to, that's why I just wanted to see it, to know it was there, because there's enough here where I can explain what the dynamic is here. And this is the step-down dynamic by which the light is made out here in the Tiwa fields, and then steps down progressively through the fire lines, from the Illyrian chambers to the fire lines, to make 12 sets of 12 different atomic elements, or literally atoms here, or atoms of elements, atomic elements, whatever. Anyway, so this is what the Tiwa fields do. They actually set and hold the pattern is actually where consciousness, or the currents that were before, they were already turned into other things through the Rasha body and that kind of thing, and that's what that 12-step materialization thing is about. But this is where they come out, and they do some interesting things here. All right, they're going to see some diagrams, so we'll go back to where you see the fire chambers and the Illyrian chambers, and you'll also see something different on them. They're not going to be shown on the flows, on these flows, these core flows, but I just want you to see that these are the core flows that run the spirit body, and they're supposed to be like, they call it the mix master. By the way, they refer to this whole structure as the mix master because it is. It mixes all of the currents and it brings them. That is the way that the solidity that with the stuff we see as solid matter is actually created. The elements of it. Next one, please. So I'm not going to try to read all of these, but what you're seeing here, just real quickly, is you see the D3, right? D3, 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 D3 is the one that's running the outside. Then there's D2s, right, on the fire chambers. And then there's the D1 levels, right? There's another level to this, too, that has to do with big ones, that have to do with the master ones that control the Tiwa fields. And they haven't given, I think I actually have them, but they're so scribbled, they were scribbled in color, and I can't tell which ones they are in this one. It doesn't matter. We're going to get more on that where I'll have them specifically written out, whatever ones we're going to use. There are fascinating processes here. I don't think we're going to get into certain ones. There are certain ones we need to do with the mental body structure first. But when we get into working with the physical bodies in the next workshop and the spirit bodies, we're going to be given progressively more ability to work with these families because these are part of our consciousness that is manifesting itself, or first manifesting itself as light and then transducing itself down into the atomic structure that we're built of. This is part of our birth quantum. So the planet has a part of its own birth quantum. So we will learn eventually. I don't know when the technique is going to come. It won't be in this workshop. But there is a way to find what line what line you're particularly like from, what particular line of, because every one of us has more, say if you had more energies from this Illyrian chamber, it would give you certain parent ones, right? And you can kind of find your parents, the parent form, but not in your own little body, in the larger structure. Because everybody has a body, and this is only your density body level, so every planet has one of these, every sun has one of these. The sun's one births out the different stars, what are supposed to be stars that sometimes die and become planets, and the planet births out, has its own structure of these. So we actually come in through the cores and the Ajabadi structures of, say, if you're like out in M31, you come through the cores as consciousness, as, whatever stage, I'm not sure even, but you come through and you will that's where you would create and enter your fetal integration into a single one, and then you would grow that structure on a microcosmic level. So there's large levels of these too. And that means we each came from a particular local source field, right? A larger than us, and not as big as God source, the big God source field, which all of this is taking place within, but a smaller one. So there's a whole step-down process as we come into the densities and then do, to a single lifetime where we do fetal integration. At some point, and I hope it's not anytime soon, they show us the structure of, in our personal bodies, this is where our probable selves come from, where we actually have 12 probable versions of our own self from one fetal point. Right? There's not even incarnations. This is just versions of you running around that look something like you. And that's real complex. So we'll keep it simple first, dealing with the simple structures that each of us are literally suffocating to death from because they are being blocked. And that's why people die here and animals die here. And this is also why inorganic behaviors like eating things in order to steal mana this is turned into a vampire planet. The fact that we have to eat, it doesn't mean stop eating now. Your body needs that now or you'll kill it. But we're progressively opening the flows back up so it can start to breathe. And breathing is eating. You don't need to eat things once you get to the point where these flows are open. But you do need to eat things before that, or you will deplete your body of mana so badly that your seed atom will crash and you won't be able to open the flows. So it's important to stay normal with your food and that kind of thing. And I was like, oh God, eating is vampiring. Yeah, it is. But right now it's a stage of evolution we have to go through. All right? And if we expect to get to the next one. And it's going to be a while before. So it's kind of like, have a good time with that while you're here. It doesn't mean, pig out and you don't have to eat everything, but, enjoy the process while you're here. Because where we're moving to, when we get to median Earth, there are still certain levels of their evolutionary planes, and there would be the ones we went to first, that eating is still there. But they kill nothing in order to eat. So they go beyond vegetarianism, because vegetarians kill too. All right? Carrots have faces. They have spirit bodies. They have souls. All right. So the excuse of, well, I won't eat anything with a face. Well, sorry if you can't see the face, but it's still there. What is not a violation are things that are given naturally. You know how trees give fruit and nuts and those kind of things? They have that kind of stuff there. But if you take a vegetable, say like a potato, you got to kill that plant, right, to eat that. They wouldn't do those there. They would do things that the plant gives off naturally, right? Because the plant is giving that as a bounty to assist in those processes. And it was not a Christic thing that, oh, when God said you could go eat the animals because you're the most superior life form on the planet and they're here to follow. Yeah, who do you think invented that one? God didn't, you know? So we're in the process of moving toward becoming breatharians. But first of all, if you were a breatharian here, you would immediately poison yourself because the air is toxic. All right, the water is toxic. So we have to work our way out through these systems where we open up the flows, which will progressively open up our consciousness capacities, our mental bodies, then our physical bodies, where we'll get to go into first a medium zone between net Earth where we are and median Earth where our next stop is. And that's where the sliding cities come in. So that's something we're working toward first. So with the biology, it's important to try to maintain evenness with it. Don't do drastic stuff with it because that can actually deplete it to the point where it can't hold the activations that you're trying to anchor. So like kind of just be normal. That's why we say that, you know, if you're physically ill, go to see a doctor and take care of it on that level as well as on the levels we're working. We don't just say, oh, you know, throw out all medicine and leave it all up to God and that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, it's a good way to die. Because at this point, our bodies need all the help they can get on this planet. Not just ours, but everybody's. So if you have medical intervention, psychiatric intervention, we always say that those, you know, if you feel you need that, don't use this to justify why to not do it. You need to combine them both. It's very compatible, and I wouldn't try to explain it to your doctor unless he happens to understand. He'll think you're wacky, and he'll probably put you on Thorazine or something. Right? Yeah, I would suggest not trying to explain it to, you know, your general MD person unless they're an enlightened one. There are many enlightened doctors, but not too many enlightened in this way yet. You know, bless them. But they do their best within the framework they understand. I don't understand medicine. And I'm like, thank God, I don't have enough brain cells left to do this and understand all that. I respect doctors hugely because they have to learn. And in a certain way, I am a doctor of metaphysics, right? Which is not, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not any of that stuff in that way. So I don't claim to be. But I do respect doctors. They work really hard to get to the point where they're doctors so they can learn all of that. And, you know, so we're not saying to just, we're going to heal now and don't ever have to do that again. We need to work ourselves through this mutation. No one ever said it was going to be easy or simple. Simple, it obviously isn't. But it will get easier. But right now, on this planet, we are working with the fact that the Omega Kill Code was activated by the White Dragon teams of FAs. And that was meant to rapidly kill the planet and shut down gates, but was also made to rapidly kill, especially those who were sensitive to the energies coming in, the Guardian teams that were here. It was meant to hit our, they knew it would hit our gene codes first. So we're the ones that are actually, because we came in because we're trying to transmute this stuff for the masses. And it's not easy or fun sometimes. And what we're trying to do is keep the spins balanced, where if they accelerate, we have to accelerate, right, to transmute the mess they just tried to throw into our bodies. Because every time they activate in the Earth's core, or they step up the spin of the reverse Merkaba fields and stuff, it steps up the ones in our own fields, the Cal fields, what are called Cal fields. And it literally, we're trying to make our fields consume ourselves. They're doing a good job of it already ever since we were born with the fetal integration problems here. But it's getting nasty as far as what's being done behind the scenes. And it's personal, but it's also larger scale. It's not just, they're going after the Ozerites. No, they're going after anything that's still alive, so they can take it into the harness fields with the Caduceus setup. We'll talk more about the bigger picture tomorrow, like probably toward the end, because some positive things have actually happened in that we'll talk about tomorrow. And this is why we're able to do these things now. We wouldn't have been able to do it unless certain grids were given back. And they were. Amazing how being scared to death because you knew you were going to be eaten alive can get people to be really cooperative all of a sudden. The Green Dragons just realized they lost the war with the Red Ones before it even got to the surface of the Earth. And, they asked for help again. And This was good, though, this time, because they had certain grid blocks that if they allow certain things, we can do what we were doing actually just in this workshop. It is this anchoring of what will be the water seed that will make all of this healing possible. This healing, right? Well, not exactly that healing, but where we can open the Tiwa windows to begin the process of turning on the natural flows. And I'm wondering if I think we have a set of 12 Tiwa windows. I would think we would. And then I think perhaps one big one that goes with our horizon line in our own larger structure of where our probable selves are and stuff. So I think the one that I saw was the big one, and then there should be 12 smaller ones that would progressively open, in the Tiwa structures. These are windows that open the flow between the Tiwas, the natural flows back through the mental body first, so you get a bit of mind release, right? And they will talk to the epigenetic overlays and begin poking holes in the chemical nets on the epigenetic overlays. And that will in turn start allowing the natural chemicals to start coming back into the bodies that will trigger the right things in the DNA so the DNA can start healing itself. And then that will trigger the etheric pattern. So it actually goes from as above, so below. And that has been used to cause horrible harm here. Well, it can also be used to heal here. So that's why we're doing Tiwa fields. Next one, please. Back to Tiwa fields again. Now, now imagine these on all of the lines, right? There would be one set of these. You see, there's these big ones that are centered, and these are pentagram-ishes, I call them, because what we consider a pentagram here is actually a mutation of this geomancy. This geomancy is large. This is the natural structure of a pentagram. See how skinny it is? There are specific proportions to it because it fits in between the lines. And there are a little bit different proportions for each of the dimensional levels. Right? You have this is the ones for the Tiwa levels. And they go from, literally, this is like D3 line where D3 starts there and the Tiwas start up here. So the bottom points run from the dimension below up through that field, and this one, the big Tiwas, go all the way out the Illyrian chambers and into the source field around you. All right. Now, this would be if it were just you sitting in the middle all by yourself in the middle of God's source, it would take you out to God's source consciousness field. But what it takes you into next is your local source field. All right. So that means you're on a planet. The planet would have this structure too, and out here would be the larger consciousness field of the planetary Ashe body. And then that one would be plugged in through, these are plugins. They would plug right in to the next level out, which would be the solar one, and that would be plugged into the galactic one and all the way up to the God source consciousness field. There's supposed to be an open breathing flow on all of these lines all the way through. That breathing flow has been shut off, and that is the problem. That is why this is a dying system, this planet and this solar system and this galaxy. This is a fire chamber, right? The top of the D3 one is here. See, this is another pentagonal code, right? So you have that coming up between the ones in the Tiwa fields. It's in here that we'll actually use certain techniques that they didn't tell me how to do yet, that we'll be able to manifest and put things that we desire, something desired, and seed them. Once the window is open, we can then seed them in the Tiwa fields, right, and begin the natural process of their manifesting again. So we've got a set of these. They run the fire lines for D3, D2, and D1. They run the fire lines, and that's the light body lines, right? And they are fed by, first, the ones that run the Illyrian chambers. And there's a specific process of breathing as far as 12-point spark pulses being sent out from the core, which would be at your Azure, right? Being sent out to all the lines simultaneously. And it will travel up the Illyrian lines first, and then that current splits and comes back down the fire lines into these. And then there's something happens with the currents on each level as they go from the Illyrians out there. They spark. This is where the Tiwa, whatever it's called. I refer to them as nodes, but that's not the word. Orons, that's it. The Tiwa orons are here. It sparks that, opens the flow here, allows a bit of, I believe it's prana, to come in from the source field around you, and then that comes back down and it splits and goes in here to feed the fire chambers. Meanwhile, there's several flows. There's several things happen that they're just showing me how the structure of the flows is on one of these. What is the pattern? There's a specific pattern that holds the natural electromagnetic balances, and it's through this pattern that sparks are formed. On each of these points where the lines cross over, the lines of current spark. First, the energy coming back in, it comes out. It goes up there, splits, and one of the currents comes back in here. I'll see the flows on that one a little better. But it starts this, comes back in from here, down like this, right? But at the same time, it comes down on this side too. And then this one bends over that way, and this one bends that way, and then this one bends here, and this one comes in here, and they meet, and everywhere they meet and touch, they spark. And it's those sparks, those endogelezic sparks, that form the 12 points of matter on one line. On one line, say D3, this, whatever, D3 fire chamber 12, all right? There would be a set of 12 sparks made that create the 12 elements of that line in D3. Same thing would happen in D2. Same thing in D1. And it's all because of those Tewa fields. This is the big one, and then there's the little ones that run at D2, D1, D2, D3, D2, and D1. So you have this process of energy current splitting and interacting and sparking and making living gelesic sparks. And this is sparks of your consciousness. This is part of your body that you grew and part that has been shut off because of the mutation. You still have this body structure. It was set when the Ajay body was first set, which is in the pre-Siddha cycle, partially in the pre-Siddha cycle, partly in the Siddha cycle, and when you grew your spirit body. So you have a spirit body too, and a Rasha body. The problem is the light body is not connected. The open flows between them are not connected to each other, and that's why the physical body is finite. So we are going to get into we'll look at these for a minute. This is also, there's diagrams, I've seen them, I haven't had a chance to even attempt to draw them yet, but you could fit the human body in there too. These line up specifically with the human body in certain ways, and it is not the way that fits into the other pentagram. It is not the structure that's being taught in the Days of Death paradigm that shows the little Michelangelo, I think it was, drawing or whatever, that, there's proportions of our bodies are twisted because of this particular twist. Next one, please. We'll look at the flows. Not to flows yet. These are the same things up there, but what I wanted to show here just quickly, these are showing that these are capsules of, once the sparks happen, they actually go, each one of those would have one on it, but it creates a spark cloud that densifies and becomes literally the atom that it picked up the encryption from its line, from the Rasha body that coded that line. It literally solidifies as it cools. When it sparks, it's hot. It's a endogelesic, I believe they call it, endoplasmic spark. And endoplasmic is associated with liquid. All right? It has to do with the liquid states of matter. We'll read about those and look at those in a little bit. Heaven help me. Right? There's a lot on that one. But anyway, these are capsules of elements, elemental atoms that literally form. And then they will assemble following the patterns that are set in the Tewa fields. They pick up their core pattern of hi, I'm hydrogen from the pattern set down in the Allurian chambers, down in the Rasha body. And then they come out, take those patterns out, they see them into the Tewa fields, and then you have if say you were breathing and sending energy out into your Tewa fields, those atoms that you make every time you breathe, you'd be making atoms, right? And they would come in and take on the manifestation of the encryption that you set, and it would come out in your hologram in D2, and you would see it as your next moment, that kind of thing. It is that direct. We actually are the atom makers. Our bodies are the atom makers. And this is why there has been so many lies told on this planet about, oh, if you want to be spiritual, that's just the mental body, leave it alone. Oh, die the mortal body, whatever. Oh, bury it. Yeah, right. This is the living structure that has the power to turn these processes back on. We might not be able to do it on the planet at this point. We can do little parts of the planet, but not the whole planet. Just part of it is too damaged, and they are activating the reverse small pentagram things in the core of the planet that are going to pull it into what is called the caduceus fall, where it will completely reverse at some point the light fields there. They've already been partially reversed. It will reverse the rest. We are not going to be pulled into that. And there's a part of the Earth grids that our groups are going to be here to pull back in the other direction and into the spin and clear out the mutations, putting them into the spin of median Earth, so we can, which is ascension Earth, is the first stage in ascension Earth. So there's literally, well, it was more of a power struggle before, because you had certain groups of green dragons that were trying to pull it that way too, because they thought they were going to win, and then they realized they were losing the fight with the red dragons who were fighting with them once the white dragons got involved. So the greens decided, and decided they would prefer, because you can't fix Earth at this point. You can't fix the whole thing. You can't pull the whole quantum of Earth back into median Earth, but we can pull some of the quantum. And it was going to be a lot harder to pull if these agreements hadn't been made. I forget the name of the treaty, but it came through like somewhere bizarre, like 3 o'clock this morning or something, and I have to process it. But this treaty, it is a formal treaty, and they had to put their quantum up first, because they're so used to breaking treaties. I mean, a treaty with the Green Dragons is like, good luck with that. You know, sell you some real estate in like, you know, the Everglades too, you know. Right. No. So they had to hand them over first. But what they want is help in pulling the caduceus part of net Earth away from the phantom Earth that is now being completely controlled by the reds, because they're getting pulled into phantom, and they don't want to go into phantom not under red. They wanted to go into phantom under green and take over the reds, and that didn't work. So the green dragons would like to do sovereign fall. Right. They would, so I can imagine. I think I know where a few of them are on the internet. Anyway, their sovereign fall would require a host, and the fallen Buddhara groups who did do Christ fall and who accepted a host, that they are a fall matrix, but they are doing it under Christic, under the Christic laws of energy and with Christic principle. It's a last chance space. So they could finish, the Buddhara have their system, and they've had it for ages and ages, for like literally eons since their fall, and they're not afraid of going back as space dust, because they understand the whole process. They bring these teachings back in, so people can understand that even if it gets to a point where you might not be able to do a full ascension anymore, you still go home. Even the idea of fall was created by Source as a fail-safe, so nothing would get lost. It would always be able to get back home, even under the worst conditions that free will might set in motion. And they teach a really beautiful, peaceful way about that. And not all of them, but a big group of the Green Dragons have agreed to work with the Buddhara as their Christfall hosters, and with the help of the Aquarion and the Ansanstatia Passage, which they had to get our guys' permission for. That will take place if it is successful. So we should have some Green Dragon people deciding they liked us after all, and that would be really good, because they're welcome. A part of me spent eons working with them. A lot of them are the Anu families that were like both the Jehovian and the Tothian Anus, and I have extremely strong connections to them. I love them to bits, and it's been breaking my heart to have to take a stand against the twisted teachings that a lot of them were bringing through, most of them not knowingly. Where they didn't realize it was twisted. You got Archangel Michael and all those things, Daisy of Death. Most of the people involved, they knew part of the truth was there, but they went into the Toth thing when Toth fell and went off Emerald Covenant and started, stealing the knowledge he had been entrusted with and using it for black hole technologies. This was way back in the Atlantean period. There's whole shields of people that were under his guard. He was trying to, he was supposedly going to get out, that he betrayed and took them down with him. And they've been tricked ever since. So it's been like a war of attrition, yes, in this particular New Age drama that has been unfolding. Nobody from like they don't even talk. We don't even talk to each other. We've invited them to why don't we come have a public debate? They won't even listen. So it's like, okay, but some of these guys are going to be coming back, which means some of their higher consciousness levels, their God selves levels and things, are going to gently, doesn't mean they'll always agree, because they'll always, as long as they stop whining, because they tend to whine a lot. There's a particular Green Dragon whine thing that's about, well, why isn't it free? Or I'm special, so I should have it better than everybody else. Well, I shouldn't have to do that. Somebody should do it for me. Can't I call an angel? They do all this stuff. It's like, get a grip and take responsibility, please, for your own thing. They want somebody else to do it for them, basically. And it's always nice to have maid service. They've got pretty good maid service here. As far as if we weren't doing this, it wouldn't be happening on the planet, right? So part of the agreements were that the whining would be toned down to a dull roar. Because there is a lot of whining that comes with some of them, not all of them. There's some lovely people that are, born out of the Anu matrices that are really nice, kind, intelligent, enlightened people. But there are others that have these particular Anu kind of filters that give that problem. But they're going to be coming back in. Not all of them, but some of them. They're actually dividing. There's going to be a split in particularly the Tothian groups, where some of them we're actually helping them to get out because the others are trying not to let them get out. And, I don't know if we'll ever see them in workshops, but we will. They are coming in on the shield, because what we're going to help them do is achieve their sovereign fall. And in so doing, we will achieve our getting away from the caduceus part and bringing the part of the grids that still can go to median earth into blend there. That will set them free. We'll be able to pull enough upswing for them to pull them away from phantom that's down here, right? If you think of it as in terms of several Bivekas linked together. You have one circle that represents phantom earth, and that has two splits in it, one twisted one way, one twisted the other. Then you have another one in a Biveka lock that is the caduceus earth. Then you have the net earth, that is us, and we are net and caduceus together right now, and that's why they called it blended earth, right? And then you have median earth, which is the natural part of earth that is left from the Amente earth that used to be the whole thing. And these Bivekas have been fighting for who's going to get the rings, right? It's like Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah. Yeah. And the idea is to separate the rings. Let Phantom Ring go where it is going and where it chose to go, but help the caduceus ones to get free, because that will help us to get free back into the Amente Earth alignment, and they will get to be sovereign as long as they get hosted with the host agreements they've made with the Budhara and with the Aquarian people. The Aquafarians too, but more so the Aquarians directly, the ones from Eartha and M31. So they're going to assist them to hold a Crisfall host. And at least they will get their sovereign fall. So this is good. So we will have not as much fight, but right now the others, the white dragons and the reds, are really, really trying to activate the Omega code faster, on faster spin. And it's hurting the bodies. I mean, I don't know how you guys are feeling, but the ones who are most sensitive to the planetary energies are the guardian groups here. So we will be processing and trying to purge this stuff off. So we're being given these activations now in order to help us before it kills us. Because, I mean, I've had a terrible month just with the body. Everything's hurting. I'm like getting spleen pain, getting back pain, head pain, everything hurting. There's not been a day where there was always something that hurt, and all day long. Knees swelling, ankles swelling, all sorts of stuff. The usual stuff, but amplified, right? And I started to feel this horrible field in front of me here, and it was spinning, and I didn't know what it was. And twice I had to consciously I realized it was dragging my chakras into a reverse spin that I'm used to them being, and I had to drag them back. What the heck is that? This is what it is. It has to do. They're activating the reversal faster, and it's the bottom. They split our natural fields, our natural light body fields, our density field, into two, making Biveka lock. So you have a circle on top and a circle on the bottom, and they're both spinning in the same direction, but at least they've been spinning slower in the same direction. There's still a little bit of the currents coming in from our own natural spin that didn't have it as a full phase lock, same spin set, which would create a lockdown on the body systems. But they are trying to create that lockdown now. The top part still goes in what was its organic spin. What they did was turn the bottom around. That's why so often it feels like you're cut in half. We're like, I don't know what my bottom, I don't know where my body consciousness is. Can't find that, can't feel that. Can't even feel my legs, that kind of thing. And then the rest of you seems to be up here. They're trying to pull those together now to drag us into phase lock, which will create the reversal of the Merkabas, and it's shut down. That's what the Omega Code was designed to do. That's what they're trying to do on the planet as well. And that's the red and white teams that are trying to do that. And the greens were helping, but they wanted to pull it in their direction, and they lost. So now they're helping us to help themselves. Not too bad of a deal, but it's a mess, because this code, this natural structure of the pentagonal transduction code is supposed to have a big, long top, right? Because that's what plugs in to the next level up. If you look at these, how they line up, they have, this is the D3, let me see, this is D2, this is D3. All right, so this is the D3 frequency set, right? Here, this would be one D3 pentagonal code. And it goes past the D3, the top of it, it goes up into the in-between spot, in between the two big ones that are the Tiwa level of them. The D2 goes right up into the center point, the bottom center point of the D3 one. See, these three are linked together, point, bottom to top kind of thing. All right. And it's only these that are offset, right, because of the Allurian lines being offset. This is the shape of what a pentagram should really look like, a natural pentagram. That's why when we always use them when we had to use the other one, because we had to use it to start activations of the light body the way it is. We had to deal with what is first before we could fix it and bring it back. We would do it with a circle around it, right? Because that way, when we're running crystal frequencies, we could control the spin of it and hold it so it didn't be dragged into the caduceus spin, which is the reverse spin. And that's why I always said, put a circle around the pentagram. Don't ever use a pentagram without a circle because of this. So then at this point, we've had to use regular pentagrams because it's all that was available here. Not just because nobody drew them yet, but because we had to activate the light body itself first before you could then go and heal it. But now we're going to be taught how to use this natural shape, and that will restore these flows. It will. What's really funny is about the pentagram that they use here. I have to draw the drawings, but I've already seen it. To make this look like a normal pentagram, right? You'd have to bring the top down. It makes the legs stick out further, right? And it changes the height. It brings the arms down. So it literally completely changes the flows, and it makes them where they don't plug into each other. They're actually offset, where they have a very strange angular relationship, and that is what creates that. Just because these are the places where light is made out here and also in here, and then that light transduces into the little sparks that become the endoplasmic matter. They change the angles on these, and it creates biveka light instead of the natural Shalaya light, which is a triveka. A natural living light unit should have 3 sparks attached to it, not 2. And they have built an entire system of fall on the biveka code, the code for making light. Yeah, dead light, right? It also makes dead water and dead elements and dead people eventually and dead planets. So what we need to do is straighten these back out. And once we get that one main window open, which is what we're going to do through the process of this workshop tomorrow. Sometime we'll be doing that, probably tomorrow night. Seems we're always on night shift, excuse me. Then we will be able to bring in the natural codes from the parents, right? Not from the parents that gave birth to our bodies that were mutated too, but from the natural structures that are beyond what is called the Vibhati sac. The Vibhati sac, and it has to do with fetal integration, expands out from the Vibhati cell. And that is the cell that came from the parents. All right? So it's a piece of quantum of your energy that doesn't belong to you. It was borrowed. That part has acted as what is holding these filters in. The sins of the father and mother get passed down and down and down in the gene code. So there's a sac that surrounds the light body and makes a barrier between the light body and the Ajay body and the spirit body. And that is the sac that is holding these nasty filters. So we've got to clear the filters that came in with the Vibhati cell. And once we do that, we can open that window and then begin the process of restoring the flows. And I think there's the big window has to do with one of these, probably 12. They haven't told me this yet, but I'm sensing that I'll ask them if it's true. But yeah, okay. This is the one. This one. This is the one that we're actually opening. And it's actually a big one. It'll go this way. If you draw a pentagram around the star shape, it gives you the pentagram shape, like a window, right? And since you're in a sphere, it's kind of like a pentagram-shaped window that you see from the inside out on the sphere, as if you're living in a spherical house. And that's one of your windows where you can look out on the universe. So they're going to open this one and that. Okay. Oh no, they're going to open 2. They're going to open this one and this one. These are all right. They're saying this isn't the one I was seeing. What I was seeing was this one. They're opening these 2, and that will open the one in the mental body. And that's where you get that, where you feel like, oh, there's just a space, and it doesn't stay. It hasn't stayed all the time. It flashes in and out, but I can still find it. I can kind of like shift my consciousness. Oh, there's that peaceful space. And it's the space where if you were able to bardo naturally, even if you were leaving your body, it's where you would go, right? Like, oh, now I'm not, this is heaven, right? That kind of feel to it, right? But it's not, you don't have to leave your body to go there. But it's also where people would go if they did drop their body and went through a bardo and they wanted to do a review before they came in to another body structure. They're the places they would normally do them. They'd be natural review bands up here, right? It's the God Self space. So it's opening the God Self flows. This is the I Am God Self, which means your local God Source field, right? And that's because they're activating these, and that opens this window here. So we'll be opening this window. That is the window that controls the epigenetic overlay, which means the flows here will start, and will start bringing the natural light and the natural atomic structures back into the epigenetic overlay, into the gene code, so it can start turning on the right sets of genes and turning off ones that are actually meant to kill us. The twisted light ones that we talked about, where they're making artificial light stuff, though that artificial light makes twisted elements. It makes elements that don't bond to each other the way they're supposed to, and they bond in artificial ways, and that comes down into our bodies too, and it creates an artificial sheath, epigenetic chemical sheath, that is triggering certain genes. And the Omega code was made to make sure when certain things activated on their twisted ones of these, to make sure it would trigger the genes that would cause death in the body, to shut our bodies down before we could fix this, because they knew the only ones on the planet who would have the ability to do this would be indigos and Aquarii and angelic humans. And so they went after us with a vengeance as far as that goes. It was designed to not only take over the planet, but to kill the guardians first. They have their bodies kill themselves, right? Where their bodies would kill, they literally poison themselves. They've activated the level that will start doing that rapidly, and that's why they're doing this now. Because we're not going to get very far of sliding if our bodies get shut down and go into compaction. That's why we're also going to be teaching this is also the same thing, that even if a body died, if you have this window open, you've got your free passage out. You will get out in Bardo naturally and freely, even if you can't go through the whole transfiguration here. And if you do that, you'll drop the body cell and filter and the sac, and you'll be able to reclaim your original quantum, take it back up, and if you want to, you could actually go into Mashaya with that same body image. Or you could choose to incarnate up into a different life form if you preferred, if you wanted to get out of this human skin already. But you could still transfigure into ascension, into the Mashaya, full eternal life body form. The same structure you had, because you will come through, your consciousness will come through with an encryption that matches your body here, but it will be transmuted into its highest state. So if you wanted that as your body, you could have that, or you could have other options if you wanted to, say, birth into an Aquafarian line and just experience that more evolved type of body. I'm gonna, if I get to do this one way or the other, I don't really care at this point if I die and Bardo out, or if I transfigure it here. I'm gonna transfigure it. This poor little body has worked so long and so hard to get this stuff through. I owe it that much. And that goes for most of you too, I think. So you don't have to keep the same, image. They would show you how to let go of that full encryption if you didn't want this, the highest version of whatever your body is here, once you got through. You don't have to be afraid of death, is what it is. Once this window is open, it doesn't matter. They can't do anything to harness us anymore. And some people will they'll actually say, the body feels like the trap and I'm just too tired. And if that happens, that's okay. We'll still be on the edge, of the window. We'll all still meet up again, and it will be in the median earth. So if people that you love are passing on, there's going to be a lot of people passing on this planet in the years to come, more than the usual rate. And it helps to know that as we open this window and start this process here, this is opening the bigger window in the grids that can still hold it, that opens into median earth. So as many as possible that can still plug into the host will be able to get out, even if they can't take their bodies, even if they end up getting buried because their religions tell them they're supposed to and all of that. There is a way, and it has to do with something that has to be done from the other level, where you track actually where the body cell is in where the body was buried. You can still find that, believe it or not, every time a body is buried and instead of transfigured and as a body cell stuck, the body cells stay in the planetary grids. This whole place is infested with the body cells of people who didn't get out and just got in the reincarnational cycles, regurgitation cycles, because they were tethered, they couldn't get out. So there's going to be at certain points big mass waves where we release the ones from the past as well. And there are procedures that can be used. There are some of the things that the Adashi masters teach, and like the way showers training has to do with learning how to do those things. And first we've got to get ourselves to a point where we're healed and our bodies aren't trying to eat us alive. Because basically the bodies are going to try to eat us alive now, and it's because we were doing so well with the other stuff that the white dragons are really upset at this point, and they're hoping that they can shut us up and stop us from doing this, because they don't want to lose the quantum. There's so many people stuck here right now. If you have a little tether line to that of a body cell, imagine all the millions of people and billions of people who have died over, say, just since Atlantis, probably, which is 9,558 BC. Imagine since seeding 1, 550 million years ago, right? There's an awful lot of people stuck in the review plane loops here because of this mutation. So we are going to set them free, any of them that can get out. So by doing what we're doing, we are being the way showers. Send that vertically. Thank you, beloveds. And it's like, oh, that means I can get Daddy out because I found him. All right. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's go on to the next one, please. I think we'll look at the flows on that one. Oh, this is just to remind us of the states. Remember, in the tribes classes, we learned about the 5 primary states of matter that create the 15 different states of matter, the 5 main ones that do. Way before this, all such other stuff happens. And that's the stuff we're going to read about and we're going to see on when I read this. I'm going to put, I have Mylars out, I'm going to put it up. And I think I'm going to take a break for just a 10-minute one before I go into reading that, because I have to actually readjust my eyes when I'm doing reading. My vision's getting so bad now, and I've been on the computer since 6 o'clock this morning until when I came in. So I'm having a little bit of hard time reading. But these were just the beginning of understanding elemental command. These had to do with the states that were begun in the Rasha body as it was doing its Navajo phasing, and its in the Illyrian chambers of the Rasha body, we're creating the pre-substance elemental structures. There's a whole lot more that goes with this. Next one, please. There should be one there that had the flows on it. Is it? No. There should be one that had the flows. Where did I put that then? Okay. Yeah, just let me see that, because I want to show them the flows. That might be that one. Yeah, that's that one. Yeah. And then put it back where it is, okay? Would you please? Like, when I've worked with it. Yeah, I want to see that one for a minute. Before we get into the heavy stuff on the 12 steps of materialization, this structure here, this is how the pentagonal codes work. Where, and I still don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing, which flow starts what, but it starts somewhere here, and I don't know if there's a flow that comes down the Illyrians first from the outer, from the Ajay body. I'll know this stuff by tomorrow because they're going to teach us how to open these. And there's a breathing rhythm that you use with the physical body, inhale to exhale, that, and I forget which one it is because they're just teaching me it, but tomorrow we'll learn about that part. But what this is showing, and again, I have X's on those, whoops, they're in the wrong place, like, let's ignore those, right, those 2 balls. They're meant to show the bodies that form in the bodies of atomic clouds that form, and they actually take on the manifestation of your encryption and fill it out in 3-dimensional matter and compounds and everything. So it literally forms itself within inside these, but I just have them on the wrong spaces because they actually form between, and I'll see if I can get that one done for tomorrow, because it shows like half you'd have like the upper and the lower half of D3, and the upper half of D2 is where you'd have what you know as you. Right? Where your consciousness part is in the D3 I am band, and the part you're experiencing as your body part is the upper band of the D2. And that goes down on all of the levels. So like they actually make atomic things that if you have the main dimensional spectra that run back here, or the waveforms, this is where the atomic stuff accretes, half in one, half in the other, and it blends them into this thing that you can perceive and look down in and experience as a solid dimensional structure. So we'll look at those a little bit more. If I can get those diagrams done, I would like to, but they may have more important stuff that has to get done for tomorrow, and it's going to be another one of those. It's going to be late, I can feel it. But we've got to get in some of the, I think, it depends on how tired we're going to be tonight, whether we're going to do the psychic exercises with the aquatone, and I think we're going to do that because it's not going to be great when we're just tired already, and when I'm just tired, because part of my responsibility is holding shield when a group is here, and if everybody's tired and I'm tired too, and Az is tired, that's not the greatest time to start opening and playing with your psychic senses, if you know what I mean. Right. So I was getting nudged from the beloveds earlier this evening that we would probably put the bottom half of the hands-on program, in with the Aquatone stuff tomorrow. And there's still going to be a lot of technicals tomorrow. There's a lot more information that's to be covered first. And I have to get it down first, which is the usual. But at least we had a little bit ahead of the game. At least I had an idea of what the program looked like. So progressively, the time thing will change, not immediately. Anyway, these flows are interesting. And again, I know we have, I don't know, I think they're probably going to talk about this more in the Virginia Beach workshop that will deal with the body level, right? But we have a big one of these. It's like if we're standing in the middle of it, right? And there's a natural way things are supposed to flow. And there's names for all of these currents, right? You have the current that will come up, and I'm so tired I can't remember that, and because I got that manuscript through where I have so many terms dancing in my head, I won't even try to remember what I knew before they gave me that, because it blew this stuff out of my head pretty good as far as names of things. But the current would come from the core, right? And out all the lines simultaneously, of course, but we're just looking at what it does on one. It would come out and go all the way up the Illyrian chamber. It would hit the Oron out there on the edge of the Age body, and I think there's two of them. This is the Age body one, and this might be called a node. I'm not sure what. They didn't tell me that yet. But the current comes out, and it refracts. It becomes what are called refracted code particles, and it refracts into two. It splits into two currents. This one is ethos, and that one is eros. Right? This is where just the beginnings, the iridanus levels are set. This is where the iridanus body and all of that start forming first. This is where that type of matter forms first. So you have it comes up, and it would be this. I think this is they call this the logos stream, because if you put ethos and eros together, you get a substance called logos. And these are all substances, and some of them we've got the translations for, like what is mana, what is this, what is that. We've got the step downs on them. So they are specific atomic composites. So these are like atomic composites that it didn't start with one. Just it starts with one type of thing, but not like all the 12 elements across the bottom, their families. There was something that came before. There was a composite of a bunch of them, right, that then fragmented to or refracted and allowed all of these other 12 families of elements to form. So the logos frequency comes out here, splits into ethos and eros. And the splits are always, if you look at this, say it was you got your left side and your right side. And the left side, this current over here, we will get to in a minute. That has to do with part of what. This has to do with. Wait a minute. One of them's running mana and one of them's running logos. They're two very specific currents. But the one that this is where prana comes in. It splits here, splits off here, and then the logos comes here, creates the iridanus flows, which are the pentagonal flows. And then the prana flows go this way, and they're the ones that go into the fire lines, right? So it comes up the Illyrian line, all the way out, hits there, splits, becomes a refracted code particle, and then splits again, coming through the body sac, right, which would be about this level, forms the prana ki and prana chi. Ki is positive, chi is negative, and they're specific. If you put prana chi and prana ki together, you get a full prana. And a prana is a full joule quantum. All right, a joule of heat. So you got a third joule here and 2/3 here. When they come together, they make full prana, and that creates prana joules, which are specific radiation, heat radiation. That's the stuff that they make how they talk about calories and how you burn something and whatever is left, they say it's that many joules of heat. Well, that is, or energy, that is what they're talking about. So the prana is carrying the joules. They call them prana joules. And they go into the fire lines from the Illyrian chambers. The iridanus currents come down, the ethos and the eros, come down very specifically. The white lines, the white arrows, are the ones that are carrying the ethos, which is a positive charge, and the dark ones are the ones that are carrying the eros, which is a negative charge. The eros, I believe, has something to do with picking up what's called the adjugate, and I won't even try to wrap my brain around that right now. We've talked about the adjugate twin that would be from our direct opposite horizon on the opposite end of our vector line. If we're on, say, if our solar system is on vector line 410, we are in 4, which is the vector that we are manifesting in. 10 would be our adjugate. All right, and it would be the opposite. If we are the Ettore 4 system, cross that vector line through the center, and you would find the Adore 10 system, and that is considered an adjugate. And out here, there's an exchange of energies, or they're supposed to be, between the adjugate and like the elements from the adjugate and elements from here. And that's what allows the natural formation of some of the things we'll hear about when we read this that have to do with celestaline and allowing the natural processes. We're supposed to be able to breathe back and forth, and atoms and elements are supposed to move back and forth between the systems, and it has to do with what's called an adjugate bond. And this is why the elements right now, if they tried to make these substances down here, they couldn't make them. Only the bodies can make them by opening the flows to get the adjugate back in. Because the adjugate bond is the element you don't see that is holding two together. So they force bonded certain elements here to create a type of matter base and chemical base, but it's an inorganic one. The natural one has an adjugate bond where instead of being just a biveca, which are two, like say two substances bound together, there's a third invisible one that is actually on the opposite spin in the Adore side that is the adjugate, and that is holding them together and allowing the living life cycle to take place. So as we begin to open the flows, we'll be getting the adjugate flows back in, and I believe they flow with the eros. So we'll be getting the eros back in. Eventually, all this translates into the combinations of bass tones, overtones, resonance tones, and primary tones that the natural musical scale is built on. Because every one of these lines has a natural vibrational and oscillation signature and has its own specific set of tones. And there are ways to use those tones in the body to open these flows, to bring the adjugates back in. So natural structure. So our bodies can start producing natural elements. And that will be very interesting to watch. Wait. What? What?
The adjugate is just above that.
That's his adjugate spirit. That's different. That's ethos. Remember, ethos is adjugate spirit, which is the spirit of the adjugate, which would be on our side, right? Yeah. Yeah, and with the labels, take the labels with a grain of salt, because these are what takes so long. Like, okay, that's that. No, it's that. And I have to double check and triple check. These are just in their very rudimentary stages, but I know the ones what's basically correct, right? As far as understanding all of these flows, that's going to be fun someday. There's another set of flows, by the way. See here? There's this little thing coming down through, and it's the lotus petal flow. It's the same thing you would see in that bigger one that had the Lumeridana that showed the big petals, right, in the spirit body. There's flows that come down that way too. And all these flows interact with each other. The Eridanus current comes down, and this gets really tricky because you have male and female, or negative and positive orons, which create different ones, and they would be opposite. If this one is, I forget which one's which. They just started showing me that. But you have to trace them around to find out which one's male, which one's female. And they would have flows that were like in opposite direction. I don't think that works down when it gets down into the dimensional level. It does on the little ones, but it doesn't on the density one. And that would just go with whatever the planet is, and that's the one we're going to be using. So we can use the same one, but ours will adjust themselves, like whether you're male or female as far as what your energies are. If you get the density one going the right way the planets are supposed to, that will set yours, your dimensional ones, into the right state. But they go male and female, and then they step down here, male and female too, going down to D3, D2, D1, as far as the flows. They switch and combine, and it allows them, there'd be another set here, right, and another set here, and all the way around, right? And it allows them to exchange energy between each other as well, between the lines. And that's where the elemental currents become formed through these processes. Because every time one of these crosses over, these are happening at the same time. This comes down here, bounces, hits that fire chamber, bounces, goes over here. Same time, this one comes down here, bounces, and goes over there. And then hits it up here again. Both of them, they bounce, and they come here. Everywhere they cross, they make a spark. And there are 12 key points where they spark. And those 12 points make what are called endogelesic sparks that once it cools, where the fire isn't coming through, they call them fire lines because that's where the living, moving currents are coming through. Once those currents go back, they cool and they solidify and they become elements, literal elements, and then they already have in them the intelligence that's in their encryption that was set by the Tiwa fields and what was in here. So they literally self-organize. Well, they're supposed to. Right now, the Cal filters, which are the unnatural light filters, the bivector light filters that are blocking out. We have one on each level, 1D2, 1D1, 1, 2, and 3. I'm getting tired. So we have to crash through those cal filters, and the way to do it is to open the window. We wouldn't be able to do that without help. The beloveds are helping, and they're doing it on a planetary level. And they're, the host shield here, which is it's our teams, the Azurite teams, and the Aquafarian teams, and the Aquari humans, and the angelic humans. Anybody who's left here that cares to learn about this stuff, and a lot of people who don't even learn about it. There are lots of us sleeping all over the place. It'll be interesting to see the wake up that is going to happen once this window is open, because that will help a lot of people to begin running these flows if they have any of the Christic codes in them where they can anchor them, which will be really good. Anyway, the flows create the sparks, and then there's a spin. I think they spin from the center, and they create currents. This is where we get the Christic spiral proportioned currents, and that's where, on the same level, the Metatronic nonsense with its messed up pentagram, it creates a different angle spiral. It creates the Fibonacci spiral, which is the Metatronic sequence spiral. So all the things that we've learned, they all fit into this basic. It all leads up to this, which is the materialization of literal matter, and it self-organizes following the patterns that will be held in the Tewa fields. And since we have in the Tewa, around the light body, between the light body and the Tewa fields, there is what is called that Vibhati sac that came from the parent imprint that we expanded out within, from inside of. That is what they have mutated, and they have created distortion in that to the point where we can't. This process does not work. What the Merkabas do, the Metatronic Merkabas do, is they take the bit of energy that was our original birth quantum that we should have brought into this whole wonderful process of opening up the flows, and it kidnaps it and hijacks it. So literally all that can run the chambers are, and on each level, you have the etheric body ones, and they don't interface with the ones up above, the telluric body. So the physical body runs one level, the etheric body another, and the mental body another. There's hardly any connection. There's about half quantum connection, I think, between them. As far as like half of the quantum has been stolen into the reversal of the lower